It's finals time. This is what you work to 11 weeks and an exhibition round for. This is where you put your money where your mouth is. You come to a circuit which is famed as a former testing track. You come to a track which also has had its ability as one of the staples of a MotoGP calendar. It's been at the top of the likes of supercars for many a decade. And this place here, located on an island, on Phillip Island, so to speak, here in Victoria, here, Cows, it's going to be a magic evening to watch. This championship has seen twist and turn and everything else in between, but ultimately it is those who want to fight for victory that find themselves here. Two championships to be decided here tonight as we get ourselves ready for action here at this wonderful circuit, the Phillip Island circuit, here on Forever Sim Racing. It's Shakespeare here in the commentary booth, joined as ever by Caitlin Penny, Marco Barbanera on the cameras, provided by the legendary Dougie Beard out here, and of course a massive thanks to those who get it done for us. First, of course, to Forcex Designs, graphics partners for us here on this broadcast, as well as Violet and her music. You can catch out her brand new album, Queen of Misfits, out on Bandcamp, as well as Spotify, as well as all the others that you may find yourself watching. But it's finals day. It's always a tough 3 rounds, but at a track which is ever decreasing in terms of its parabola, when it is a very tough circuit when you get it wrong, especially in these styles of Audi RS3s. Caitlin, this is a tough circuit to go out and win a title on.
Certainly. This, of course, Phillip Island in Australia, on Phillip Island, incidentally, who would have thought. But anyway, yeah, very tricky circuit. This is actually the first time I've ever watched a race here, and I've never driven it either, so I can't give you any first-hand experience of how it feels, although I'm noticing a lot of elevation change. It appears to be right on the side of the cliff, pretty much, next to the ocean, and a lot of it seems to very much follow the topography of the terrain, which I always appreciate in a circuit. And that opening sector as well, you come around a fast right-hander into what is basically a hairpin, and that's always very tricky, especially since if YouTube videos have shown me anything about the circuit, it's that cars do tend to end up plowing into each other there. So hopefully everyone keeps it clean today. But yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Yep, absolutely fantastic, and we have seen so many times over this season how great racing can eventuate and can happen over the course of racing action. So we will see how this one plays out in the long and the short. Qualifying currently underway with 30 minutes of that available, all open qualifying, so this track will evolve and get quicker and quicker as this session goes on. You've got to be on your game at the moment. Driver on their game the best is, surprisingly, the amateur category leader, Andy Maxwell, has himself at the top of the timing stands on a 1:38.5. I tell you what, this circuit brings out the best in certain drivers.
Andy Maxwell, of course, we see him getting better and better as the series has gone on. And Carl Jacqueline now crosses the line to go even faster, 0.6 of a second faster. So Carl Jacqueline at the top of the order. Of course, Johnny Brandon and Nicole Foggy, of course, over the pole position all the way through the last few rounds. Ethan Bass now at the top. So Ethan Bass, 1:37.843. Goodness me. Couple of unexpected names at the top of the times, although Phillip Island, of course, isn't a track that many people have really raced at unless you're from Australia. So I'm wondering how many people have proper experience at this track, and how many people are visiting it for the very first time. But anyway, Bass at the top, followed by Danes, Jacqueline, Maxwell, and Brandon, only 5th at this point in time.
Yep, and only 5th for the time being. Nicole Foggy, for example, championship leader, down in 11th on a 1:39.7. So struggles there to begin with in terms of laps. We haven't seen the quickest that they have been available. They've gone as fast in practice as 1:37.1, which would put them 7/10 clear of the two Brittech Sim Sport cars at the top. And over the line they go. No time for Nicole Foggy. Johnny Brandon of 53.3. No time for him. And you got Warmingham and LaValle on the back of that train, making it 4 XV Racer cars going through that section. A lot of big key overtaking points on this track. If you're brave, you can get it done into turn 1. That is, of course, that wonderful Doohan corner. You go through turn 2, the Southern Loop, and then you've got that big turn 4 Honda corner, which is always an overtaking opportunity. If you can't get it done there, then brave men go at turn number 10 down the hill at MG corner to try and get the moves done. This is a track full of overtaking opportunity. It is a fast circuit as well, which means that this is going to be a big fuel game track to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, of course. I pointed out that we're racing at Phillip Island to someone who knows the track a bit better than I do, and the first thing they mentioned was tyre wear, which is something we have seen coming into effect at previous rounds, especially at the circuits with faster corners, because of course with front-wheel drive cars they do tend to understeer, and I mention this at every round, but this of course has the engine right at the front, so as a result the car does tend to put a lot of weight, a lot of pressure on those front 2 tires, and overheat them quite easily. Although it does take a while to get those tires up to speed, but whatever the case, the race 3 I expect is when we're really going to see tyre wear affect the cars
Bang.
more, since that is the longest race. Meanwhile, here come the XV Racer lap times at last. Nicole Foggy went to the top with a 137.426 and was immediately beaten by Johnny Brandon with a 137.272. Has the slipstream behind Nicole Foggy. It's a large area of negative pressure behind Nicole Foggy's car. That's known as the slipstream, and Johnny Brandon using it to the maximum effect there to put his car to the top of the times immediately.
Yep, and that is a big time bang. There's contact there as well. So Nicole Foggy coming together with Michael Bingham. Might be words about that, especially how late in the championship everything is. Maybe a little bit of conversation about it. But Brandon to the top of the timing stands 2/10 clear of one thing there in the terms of the second time for Nicole Foggy, which is, of course, 137.4 for him. So 2/10 off of where is need to. And that ultimately brings all those times back in. And it seems like everybody needs to find just a little bit more improvement. Kip Stevens, one of them, very big outsider for the chase for the showdown, in 12th position at the moment when it comes to qualifying. Won't win the championship, or has a very, very long shot to do so. But ultimately out there in position, looking to try and get something going. But it seems like the amateurs have come up to the forefront. Scott Malcolm in 9th, Andy Maxwell in 8th position, Ethan Bass in 3rd. And he needed a big round. And you know what? Gone and got it.
Well, actually, he's just been beaten there. Rich Warmingham has gone up into 3rd position. Steve LaValle now up into 4th as well. So a couple of big laps coming in from those drivers. Warmingham followed by LaValle, and it's the turn of the XV racers with 1, 2, 3, and 4 as it stands. Ethan Bass, currently the top non-XV racer driver, in 5th place. Chris Daines in 6th, and Carl Jackalette, Maxwell, Malcolm, and Leggett the top 10. 17 drivers have set laps so far. We've got 3 drivers in the server who have not set laps. Lane O'Connor is on track, so I think Lane is going to set a lap. Carl Hardy and Dan Blake don't appear to be going for it, so I expect they probably have a penalty which restricts them from taking the start of the qualifying lap. But anyway, I'm now expecting to see Nicole Foggy going quicker in the next few laps. He's got up behind Steve LaValle, so I expect the strategy is going to be to use his slipstream to improve his lap. And that's important in the championship. Of course, it's mainly between Foggy and Brandon at this point in time, although there are a few other outside shots still technically in contention. And for these drivers at this point in time, even the points in qualifying are going to mean the world to.
Well, let's talk championship points, because we know that Nicole Foggy, 37 points clear at the top of the standings ahead of Johnny Brandon. That's going to be the big battle between the 2 XV Racer cars. It's then the Excite Energy boys, Ash Beard and Adam McNally, who are a point apart. But in terms of Ashley Beard in his run for today. It is non-existent, not here at this round. It's going to be a nightmare for him. He will have no shot of winning from this point onwards. So you look at the likes of Danes trying to make his push, as well as Lee Deemer and Kip Stevens. It's going to be most likely 2, potentially 3 going to fight. You talk about what's going on in terms of the Amateur Category Championship. Maxwell, a lead of 19 at the front over Gardner, but the likes of Bass and Co have made some good pushes, but they are not in that fight for the championship. You look at the likes of those who are going to try and make those pushes up through the field. You look at Charles Kellyman, Scott Malcolm looking to try and find some big points, maybe Michael Bingham. It's going to be a long day at the office for those looking for those big points.
Big points, of course, are what everyone's looking for today. Not that they're ever not looking for big points, but today it matters more than ever in the drivers' minds. They know that this is the last chance. They're going to be feeling that pressure, and I expect that a lot of these drivers have been putting in far more practice than usual just to make sure they get the absolute most out of this series. Nicole Foggy, of course, has a 37-point advantage in the championship, but with 3 races still to go, that's not as big a gap as it sounds. Behind him as well, we've got a really close fight between the Excite Energy drivers, Ashley Beard and Adam McNally, for 3rd in the order. And considering that McNally only just got into the top 9, that's pretty impressive there, and he's doing a great job. But yeah, even further back we have, for example, the AM category standings. Maxwell and Gardner not really separated by that much at all, just 19 points, I believe, going into the final round. So they're both going to be pushing for it, especially since they're from opposite teams, Optical and Boosted Motorsport, unlike the 2XV Racer drivers who are battling, or the 2 Excite Energy drivers who are battling. But anyway, although this round doesn't mean anything more than the others in terms of points, you bet that these drivers will feel more pressure this weekend.
And let's not forget there's 22 points on offer here in qualifying, and that's why Johnny Brandon being up in front is so vital ahead of Nicole Foggy, and we'll hope that the teammates, especially Rich Warmingham, who's currently 3rd at the moment on a 37.468, finds a little bit more time. We'll see how that one plays out in the long and the short of things. At the moment, every single position is really, really vital. 20 cars here today looking to try and put times together, and that is going to be something really interesting in terms of how this is going to play out. So we'll keep an eye out then on how that goes for all 20 that are going to get themselves in. We have seen great drives already at the moment. James Leggett is one of them in the 663 up to 10th position. Good qualifying from James. Expect to see more from that.
Yeah, James Leggett, a driver who I think has actually missed a few rounds recently. I don't remember seeing him last time out, although doing well in 10th position at present. Kip Stevens ahead of him as well. Kip Stevens set that lap not too long ago, and doesn't have the advantage of a significant slipstream at this point in time otherwise, so that's impressive from him. I'm more looking at the top few drivers though, seeing if they're going to improve this time around. Rich Warmingham, now did he just? I think Rich Warmingham just improved his lap there, although still not able to get ahead of Nicole Foggy, even though he got slightly closer there. Much closer than he has been in previous rounds, partly because he's getting slipstream from Nicole Foggy. Although we're used to seeing Brandon and Foggy about 5 or 6 tenths of a second faster than anyone else in qualifying, so it's a lot closer at this point in time. And actually, it's a very, very tight field at present. We've got the top 9 cars separated by less than a second as it stands in an 18-car grid, where we have AM drivers as well. That's really not bad. We also just have another driver joining the server. We've had 19 laps set so far, so Dan Blake did get out there and set a lap, and also someone else just joined the server as well. Not entirely sure who it was, but good to see 19 drivers here. That's more than we had last time, and I think that's partly because this is the championship finale.
It is that championship finale, and everybody knows they've got to be out there and scoring points and trying to take points away from other drivers and get up there as much as possible. Top 5, Brandon, Foggy, Warmingham, Lavallee, and Bass, there in 5th position. Then it's Danes, Jackalette, Stevens, Maxwell and McNally. That's how your top 10 looks. McNally has moved himself up into 10th position. That is the outside of the 5th row, ahead of James Leggett, ahead of Scott Malcolm, as Lane O'Connor finds improvement in time for the XV Racer team, moves up to 15th place on a 38.9, but no doubt there will be more time for the XV Racer driver. Lane has been not necessarily the weak link as such, so to speak here, Caitlin, but has been very consistently taking points away from the mid-pack and being a nuisance in those middle-pack battles.
The middle pack battle is very close as well. I know I said that about the front of the order, but the middle of the order is even closer at present. 15th place up to about probably about 7th. Or very, very close indeed. I think probably less than a tenth of a second separating all of those drivers. Little bit of a gap between Maxwell and Leggett, 10th and 11th at present. And we've just had a jump near the back of the order as well. Someone just made a big improvement. I think it may have been Scott Malcolm jumping up into 12th position. So an improvement. No, he's at the end of the lap, so I think it may have been John Roberts instead. Yes, it was. So John Roberts up into 13th, approaching the top 10. Still needs to find 4/10 of a second. I'm not sure that's happening, although of course we still have 10 minutes left in this 30-minute warm-up session. Just seeing that the XV Racer drivers are regrouping and replenishing their energy in the pits. All of them, of course, coming in after their first fight, and now heading back onto the track to start slipstreaming each other again and attempting to improve their laps, get as much of a buffer over the rest of the field as they can.
Well, they're looking for a buffer. They're looking for everything they possibly can here in qualifying. But for the time being, it's going to be a tough challenge to find any more improvement on what they already have. The track temp is 29 degrees currently, 19 degrees cloudy in the air. Winds, of course, blowing in from the north at 3 kilometers an hour is a staple of this series. They are all looking to try and chase this down as they go on through. So we'll see how this all plays out in terms of how this is going to work for everybody in this field. But now you start thinking about who's packing up, who's got their trains all sorted together. And the big key fact is that you've got that 2-car train with Danes and Bass both working together, and it's going to be a tough challenge for the pair of them to try and make sure that they both use their toe to work through. Since their fastest laps, they have been up at a certain level and they haven't been able to breach it. In fact, nobody has been able to breach anywhere close to a 3/10 gap to those who are in 4th, 3rd, 2nd and 1st. So it means that for those in the BrickTech SimSport team, and we know that Chris Danes has been the closest challenger, there's more work.
Chris Danes, the closest challenger, pretty much all the way through this series. Currently in the he is 5th in the championship, so still beaten by the 2 XV Racer drivers, or 2 of the XV Racer drivers, the 2 main ones, Foggy and Brandon, in terms of the championship, and the 2 main Excite Engineering championship contenders as well, Ashley Beard and Adam McNally. Although the BrickTech SimSport driver doing a very good job in 6th position at present. We have Ethan Bass just in front of him, and Ethan Bass, one of the drivers who hasn't made every round of the series, so isn't in contention for the championship as it stands. Still proving what he could have done by running in 4th position, or 5th position, sorry, as it stands, and just 3/10 of a second off Steve Lavallee, the 4th XV Racer driver. XV Racer do tend to have this much of a gap in qualifying. Definitely have the best strategy. Definitely have you could argue the best drivers as well with Brandon and Foggy. Although of course their main contenders earlier on in the series were Team Rensport Online until they dropped out partway through. But yeah, Dane's doing a good job there in 6th place as it stands.
Just behind Chris Danes is Carl Jacquelet in 7th for the Year 1 team. Runs wide through turn 2, and there is a lap abandoned. Just like that, Scott Malcolm will have to go on his own from this point in the number 74 car in 12th position. So Jacquelet, great qualifying, was on the outside looking in, making his way into the showdown. So that did not work in terms of how the plan was trying to be affected, and trying to get going, but this is going to be a very, very difficult challenge for those who are going to want to try and make this work. They know that time is of the essence now. They know they are just 6.5 minutes away from qualifying ending. And of course, with the cloud cover that has just come over the circuit, this is going to make life easier for those drivers to try and get a time together. With the iRacing dynamic weather that comes into play, this could be the big game changer for all these drivers.
So, who's got a slipstream at this point in time? Brandon slipstreaming Foggy. That's unexpected since Brandon is currently leading the session. Warmingham is right behind Brandon as well. And we have the normal complete XV racer train with Steve LaValle right on their tail. And who's that following them as well? It's Lane O'Connor. So O'Connor joining in the fun, currently down in 16th position and hoping to improve into the top 15 probably, or as high up as he can get. Still, 19 drivers have set laps. I don't think we are going to get a lap from Carl Hardy. We'll have to start further back. And Hardy's another driver who I think has been improving a bit recently. He's been able to really challenge in race 3 of late. Anyway, also getting slipstreams, we've got Ethan Bass right up behind Chris Danes. And slipstreams we've seen all the way through this series. Very, very important to launch the car up the order because, of course, these cars are all so similar in terms of pace. They're all very unaffected by things such as turbulent air, and as a result, you definitely gain more time than you lose from running behind your opponent, so long as you still are able to see your braking points, to see your apexes, and run a lap as if the car in front of you were there.
Well, we'll see how this one works out then, as you find the likes of Kip Stevens now up into 8th place, 138.1, 910 off the pole position for the time being, as through Siberia and now through the big left and right handers that are all full pelt as much as you possibly can through this section, where these drivers all try and bring the power up, use the slipstream, and you come up the hill over this left hand, this fantastic left-hander, up and over the hill, back down again you go to MG at turn number 10, and this is where everybody knows that that is the bravery corner. You get that corner wrong, that is day done. Day one, day last, it doesn't matter when it is. You get it wrong at turn 9, you know there is no coming back from it.
You could say that about a lot of this track. I'm looking at the runoff areas. There aren't any. It's all grass. It's all tarmac. Gravel rather. There's even a grass bank on the inside of some of these corners. And then, of course, you have an uncompromising tyre wall. And those tyre walls as well, looking very pointy, looking very sharp almost. Definitely going to spit cars out and throw bits of bodywork off, even though these cars are built like tanks sometimes. It's very easy to make mistakes as well on a circuit like this when you have elevation changes, when you have tight corners, medium speed corners, faster corners such as turn 1 as well. Difficult to get right, you really need to get into a rhythm. But as soon as you get to those hairpins, sometimes your rhythm can just be absolutely shattered, especially if you've got another car ahead of you or another car challenging. I expect these are going to be some of the most difficult races on the calendar, possibly comparative to Monza in terms of the difficulty of the racecraft here. But anyway. Still looking at the XV Racer train. I don't think they're on a flying lap this time around, but I think that next time round they're going to have to go for it, because looking at the timer, it's ticking down, and I think their tyres will probably be just about up to temperature by now.
They're knocking on the door. 37 sixes for everybody in the train. That last time by, they've come down Lukey Heights into MG, and now through turns 11 and then the final corner, turn 12. Always very difficult. You want to put the power down early through this corner. You wait and wait and wait, but in these vehicles, it is flat as a pancake as you get up over 200 kilometers an hour, maybe trying to hit the edges of the rev limiter as you cross the line. Foggy 37 sixes, Rich Warmingham 37.468 does not find improvement on times, cannot jump Nicole Foggy or Steve LaValle. LaValle himself did find improvement, but he also couldn't find what he needed. They have up to 2 laps of time where they can go out and get what they want. A couple other drivers out there trying to get what they want. Chris Daines, Ethan Bass, Kip Stevens together, as we've seen over the last 10 minutes or so, trying to work a way around and get the points that are desired in this qualifying session. 39.4 from Kip Stevens won't help. 39.4, 39.2. They're gearing up to those laps. It will take 2 laps to get that working. They're going to be right on the bubble, if not making it. So this is going to be a big last lap for the likes of Bass and Daines and Stevens and the train that goes through. Lavalle's dropped off the back of it, so now Rich Warmingham, the only man available to try and knock off Brandon or Foggy out of those in the same train.
So here we go, a couple of hairpins coming up. We've been through one, that's the right-hander, and then the next one is a left-hander past the sea. And important to get a good exit here as well, because the next sector is very, very fast and it can be difficult to hang on to the car in front of you. So the better you can get your exit, the more momentum you're going to have through here to just power your way through over the curb. And what's happened?
And Nico Foggy pulls off and allows Johnny Brandon the chance then to go out and attack. So that's going to be quite interesting. Through the final corner then comes Rich Warmingham and Johnny Brandon, both on great laps at the moment. Brandon defending his times, Warmingham using the toe to come back in. And there's a 37.3, and Foggy now drops an extra point here to Johnny Brandon because of his own teammate, Rich Warmingham. So Johnny Brandon gets what he wants, the lead, and second position is his teammate Rich Warmingham, not his teammate Nico Foggy. So that's going to be a couple points that are going to be lopped off. Kip Stevens will not find improvements, nor will any of the BritTech SimSport cars as they go through. There is still time to find some laps as the timer expires. Lavalle won't find it. I'm pretty sure Warmingham and Brandon have stopped their laps. They have. So John Roberts then will be the next to the line with James Leggett just behind. 2 of the Booze Ted Motorsports cars as John Roberts, the gentleman, will look to try and make his way up through this fast right-hander before Lukey Heights, turn number 9. This ferocious corner which could be planted anywhere in the world and still be just as dangerous as they go through the left, up the hill, and then back down it into the very ferocious braking zone of turn number 10. You're fighting gravity through every single part of the corner and through the left then of turn number 11. A big wide missed apex then from John Roberts, and that might not have been the best strategy, but wanted to get the car as straight as possible to be ready for turn number 12. Hitting up through 190 k's, putting the power down. Tyre on the grass there on the outside. Have to be careful about that to keep all 4 wheels on, not picking off track instant point, and he does not find the improvement that he wanted through that section. Leggett dives down in for Brandon and Foggy, and Lane O'Connor's time, I don't think, are going to be just as good. Maybe they're trying to boost O'Connor up a little bit forward. We'll see how this one works. We know Brandon's time won't be representative. Foggy's time will also not be representative, and Lane O'Connor 38.7 only good enough for 15th position as that goes on, as Charles Kellyman will make a dash over to the line, and that is only a 141 flat, not good enough. Andy Maxwell does not set a time, not good enough either. Everyone across the line, and this is how qualifying is going to stack. So Johnny Brandon then on pole position, 137.272. Rich Warmingham is going to be alongside on the front row. It is an XV Racer front 4 with Nico Foggy 3rd and Steve Lavalle starting this one from 4th position. Then it's the all BritTech SimSport 3rd row. Ethan Bass followed by Chris Daines. Carl Jacquelet, first of the year 1 cars, will start this one from 7th. Kip Stevens going at this one from 8th position. Adam McNally starts this one from 9th, the Toonside boy, with Andy Maxwell, amateur category leader, 10th place. Good qualifying.
So yeah, 11th place in the end, James Leggett, then Scott Malcolm, P12, John Roberts, the gentleman driver, P13, Lee Deemer, another gentleman, P14. Lane O'Connor had a disappointing session, especially since considering his recent pace, with P15. Dan Blake was P16, followed by Michael Bingham, Charles Kellyman, Dean Timms, and not setting a qualifying lap was Carl Hardy in P20.
And that is the 20 looking to get up onto this race to get themselves the lap that they want. They have themselves upwards of 2 minutes to grid up for this 11-lap race. 30 minutes put on the clock for the 11 laps. We expect it to go 15. He could very much go more with a safety car, which has been there all season long, and everybody knows that they have got to be absolutely on it at this point to try and get the result that they want. The results that they want are dependent on the points positions that they can get. It's 80 points for a race victory, and there is a 5 points difference for every position. Suddenly, when you get a little lower down, those points gaps suddenly start to shrink. So if you're trying to claw back 30 points, then you know you need to gain maybe at least 10, 15, probably 20 if you can over this opening race. Makes life easier for the reverse grids that are coming up. 2 of them, in fact, that are coming up, which is going to be the easier of the 2 evils to deal with. If you can get damage limitation in the first of 2 reverse grids, that second reverse grid will make life easier for you because you know you've got the advantage of pushing through on a 30-minute feature. We'll see how that one plays out. 30 seconds before these drivers will start the gridding the lights procedure and getting themselves off and away, waiting for one Johnny Brandon who gets up onto the grid, one Nico Foggy who follows in behind, and pretty much everybody now on the grid for this one. It's going to be a big challenge for everyone as they look to try and make that push forward. There's the green flag, and let's get ourselves going then from this wonderful circuit. Foggy gets the perfect start that he wanted. Brandon was even better, and warming him in the second phase of acceleration brings it right back side by side as they make their way towards turn number 1, Doohan corner once again, and Foggy with the inside has no real worries already. The battle on as Days goes through, and 1, 2, 3, 4 goes off, and there's sideways action. Are they able to gather it up together? Yes, they are. 2 vehicles getting themselves all caught up, but they all managed to survive it nicely. No need for a caution then, as the mid to late pack all fell off the cliff. 6 at the front then, and Danes and Stevens are 2 of them.
Yeah, and Lee Dima's spinning off. He's in the barrier, so there's more contact further back. Dima bouncing out of the tyres and rejoining the field. I think someone else who was severely affected, James Leggett, is a long way behind the field, and someone else coming through there has been severely hampered. We'll update you on that at the end of the lap, but Lee Dima will definitely be in last place and will undoubtedly have some suspension damage as well. He's taking a bit of a shortcut there, trying to rejoin the circuit, and now eventually finds tarmac. Up in front, Johnny Brandon still leading the race. Foggy up to second, warming him down to third, and that leaves the 2 main championship contenders to fight over the top honours. That's what we love to see at the final round.
It's not just that, they will fight for top honours once again, and if you know about Nico Foggy, if he's fighting for top honours, then he knows that that's all he needs to do. He can very happily finish second to Johnny Brandon's first throughout the entirety of this meeting and still come away with the championship, but you're not going to get much run when you got draft like this. Here comes Foggy to the outside with the overspeed, and there is a big difference of 4 kilometers an hour as they go through. Brandon leading by 0.03 of a second over the line for the first lap, and around the outside, Foggy is going to be able to hold it inside line for the southern loop. Just a racing room's car width there to go through, trying to fight away on the inside. Nico Foggy moves to the race lead. Warmingham then goes into second, and off goes Adam McNally again with early lap struggles as he deals with those rears. And there's more drama. Sideways goes Dan Blake, and round there goes Andy Maxwell into the gravel. Not what the AM category championship leader needed.
Yeah, big mistake further back, and Andy Maxwell appears to have damage to the front of that car. The bonnet certainly more crinkled than he would have liked. There goes Scott Malcolm, who's also been hampered in the early stages. He goes through, and he's down in 16th position as it stands. The other driver who was severely affected at the start was actually Ethan Bass, and he's moving very slowly at this point in time. So we got problems for Ethan Bass there, and I don't think that engine's sounding great. That can happen sometimes on iRacing. Big bunch of cars, all contact, and Adam McNally's being tipped sideways. Good save. He was lucky that he got tipped in the direction of the corner, as off in the background goes Carl Jacquelet. And as Jacquelet rejoins the field, he loses about 3 places in that, being spat out into the scenery, into the undergrowth, and has rejoined there behind Michael Bingham. So still some carnage going on further back, but that's just what happens at the final round of the championship, when everyone feels the pressure, everyone feels the timer ticking
Here
down,
comes the lead.
and they know they've got to go for it.
Here comes the lead, and Johnny Brandon got caught on the inside curve of turn number 1. No dice through that section, and ultimately has to try and wait, struggling with the off-camber nature of turn 2 as well. Can't get the power down as early as he would like, so Foggy gets maybe a free pass through the Casey Stoner corner. Turn number 3 into Honda at turn 4. Of course, this is a former motorcycle test track for the Repsol Honda team. On the brakes they go into this right-hander, and again nothing then at Honda for one Mr. Johnny Brandon. Small kink then right to turn 5. Then you get to 6 here, Siberia. We've seen some drivers already today find themselves practically in outer Siberia, looking to try and battle and deal with their moves. Here's Carl Jacquelet trying to make one happen as they go through. As in front of that, oh, Dan Blake turns lane O'Connor, and I think he's going to sit and wait for that one and try and redress the position, or is he? Nope, too late in the day, going to try and run away with it. So there's Carl Jacquelet, there's Dean Timms fighting. Timms now finds himself in no man's land, and ultimately there goes through one Carl Jacquelet.
Carl Jacquelet has been hampered, but he's gained a couple of places back. We'll see what position he's in when he crosses the start finish line, and there's contact, and Bingham's going shooting off. Oh, and he's going to take out Jacquelet. So Jacquelet, Bingham, Timms, and we got a caution. So the caution's been thrown, and I'm not surprised because that was a big hit, and there were cars being spewed everywhere. Wasn't entirely sure who was going to come back and where. But yeah, carnage, and that's the problem. When you go off on the inside of a corner and there's grass, you're just going to keep sliding straight into the side of whoever is unlucky enough to be in your way.
And that's the issue then with some of the contact that we saw. Everyone was getting their elbows out here in the final race, or the final races of the championship here in round 31, the 4th round of this showdown. They all thought about getting their elbows out. They all thought about trying to get aggressive, and they all brought themselves up together, and it was never going to be right on the plan. So they all know, they all understand exactly what they needed to do, and it didn't quite work out for all of them. Just keep an eye on Kip Stevens here, who's driven right next to the pace car, and he'll have to drop himself back and make sure that he gets himself back in line. So we'll keep an eye on that as things go forward. But we saw so many couple car incidents here, there, everywhere, spins of drivers just not giving enough room, and this circuit does not lend to those trying to give that said room, and that is always going to be the big issue. As we just got a car turned around, 2 cars turned around under caution. That's Scott Malcolm and Dan Blake coming together, and that is very, very unfortunate, almost to the point of amateurish.
Yeah, that was Blake just braking on the grass, and I'm not sure why he was even there. Oh, he misjudged. He misjudged the braking point. Andy Maxwell was backing off to because Malcolm was backing off. Blake just came in far too hot and braked on the grass and just spun into Malcolm. And unfortunately, that's not the first time we've seen cars crashing or getting into each other behind the caution or behind the safety car so far this year. I remember the same thing happened back at Road America when we had our first caution of the series, and yeah, you really have to be careful about that. Come on, guys.
You do have to be careful, but these drivers will be under the iRacing mandatory caution system, which is not manually thrown, so to speak, but the distance they have to go is very much going to be interesting for them. So, pace car at the moment, the iRacing Porsche First Safety car, looking to try and make a way through. You got Nicole Foggy now leading this race, Johnny Brandon in 2nd, Rich Warmingham 3rd, Steve Lavallee 4th, Chris Daines in 5th, Kip Stevens 6th, 7th is John Roberts, 8th Adam McNally, 9th James Leggett as Dan Blake dives down into the lane. 10th place will go to Charles Kellyman, with then following Dean Timms, Scott Malcolm and co, as they all look to try and get themselves through. It's a caution period, but you also have to look at that incident down at Lukey Heights, because once you make contact down the hill at Lukey Heights towards the MG hairpin, you start thinking about, well, can you slow that vehicle down? There's no runoff area, stuck on the grass, and you're very much hoping beyond
and
hope.
Another crash. Carl Jacquelet's in the wall. Oh no, well he's kept out of the wall, but he's miles off the road. How does this keep happening?
Well, that is very weird. So we'll get a look at how that happened. It seemed very much like he started to weave, and then you're up and over, and it's downhill through all that section. So Jackalette with a big tank slapper as he tried to start weaving. These vehicles do not like being thrown sideways, and I think Jackalette's just got away with one there as he got himself a huge tank slapper. This is the thing. When you're under safety car like this, the tyres go cold, and when they go cold, you've got to make sure that the vehicle's not going to snap on you.
Come on, guys, this is childish. Anyway, everyone's still just about on the road, but yeah, safety car lights are out. So Nicole Foggy will have the task of leading the cars around. A little way to go before the end of this this lap, but it will be in this time. It's going to be Foggy leading from Brandon, and then the other two XV Racer teammates, Warmingham and the Valley. Chris Daines is the top non-XV Racer, followed by Kip Stevens, then Roberts, McNally, Leggett, and Kellyman as we get. And Adam McNally, that was very close. And he's, oh wow, big sideways movement, got on the grass, and I thought he was going to spin straight into the path of James Leggett there, just about saved it. But yeah, so many people being caught out by cold tires and just possibly a lack of concentration behind the safety car here. That's 2 accidents we've seen, and almost a third one just occurred.
Yep, Dan Blake almost ran into the back of his own teammate, which would have been very sheepish for Graham Sesford to watch. He's currently in Abu Dhabi at the moment, and he will not want to be going back on a plane home to Britain to find out that his 2 team drivers have hit each other under the safety car period, very much like Michael Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya, Monaco 2004 or 2005. I can't remember which one it would have been. 2004. Good, you've got better F1 knowledge than. Pace car dives down, then onto pit road. Lap 6 then of 11 starts with Nicole Foggy in control. It's XV Racer 1, 2, 3, and 4 as they will look to try and push on forward. We'll see, when do you go? Now Nicole Foggy decides to go, tries to catch Johnny Brandon out, gets the run that he needs for the green flag to start again as this field bunches back up and looks to try and make some moves into the Doohan corner, turn number 1. And there's a look from Steve Lavallee to try and think about making it, or maybe he's trying to protect the position behind from Chris Daines, who wants to make progress very quickly. Viking, that is Chris Daines, trying to find a way through and nothing doing at the southern loop. These drivers have to be so careful in these early goings. No dramas for those in the front. They have stayed line astern for the restart.
Line astern indeed. Foggy leading from Brandon. First, actually, everyone single file through. I thought someone was going to go for a move there, but it looked very speculative. Into the pits that last time around came Dan Blake. That's a poorly timed pit stop because he's going to lose a lot of time from that. We've lost Michael Bingham and Carl Hardy from this race already. Not sure that Hardy took the start at all. Meanwhile, Chris Daines has just been passed. Oh no, that's actually John Roberts. Okay, McNally and Leggett side by side over 8th position. Leggett's going to be up the inside, but that's going to turn into the outside now due to the sweeping nature of the circuit. Keeps it around the outside, and that's very well done there. Keeps it on the inside. As up ahead of him, John Roberts has got past Kip Stevens in all of that. But yeah, move of the race so far from James Leggett there. Just the braver driver of the two in that situation.
Yep, very brave and did what was needed to be done through that section. Go out there, be aggressive, go make the moves. It has left the top 5 running away for the second time in a row in this race as they all look to try and gain some traction, gain some momentum, gain some moments. And look at how Johnny Brandon decides, I don't want the draft. I don't want to hamper myself going into turn 1 by having to lift off more than I need to. That's sometimes the strategy. Get out of the draft heading down to turn 1 because you know you can go out there, make some moves a little bit later on in terms of the racing action. Lavallee under pressure from Chris Daines, and Daines desperately needs some points, but I think he may just be out of reach for this title if things stay the way that they do at this point in time, because the top 2 are very much fighting amongst themselves. Foggy defends it then into Honda corner, turn number 4, gets it nice and tight then on entry, which means there's no chance of making that move for Brandon, who tries to get the run on the exit towards turn 6. Can't get the move done at Siberia, but there around the outside tries Chris Daines. Has he got the momentum to make that move happen? No, he does not, but he will get a run, an overlap on the exit.
He does indeed. It's very close between Daines and Lavallee. 4th position currently up for grabs. We got Danes up the inside, not quite there. You have a sweeping long corner, and that allowed Steve Lavalley to keep alongside him and get that advantage. You really need to be all the way alongside your opponent or ahead already to get that one done. I'm also keeping an eye on the top three, who are very close, and look to be pretty much locking horns coming towards the end of the lap there. I'd be surprised if something didn't change between them before long.
And there's Foggy in the grass, just like that. Makes the mistake, runs wide out to the final corner. Easily done, easily changed position. Johnny Brandon leads with 4 laps to go here at the first round of the night at Phillip Island. Knows that's a crucial position, and now we'll try and back up Nico Foggy. Will Johnny Brandon into Rich Warmingham?
Just as I said, yeah, I expected that it would change soon. I wasn't expecting it to be a mistake from Nicole Foggy, though. You don't see many of those completely unprovoked from such a strong driver. He's up the inside again, although that's going to turn into the outside because the next corner is a hairpin. And also in the background, Danes and Lavalley going for it.
Dane's too far.
Keep the lead. Oh, Dane's off the road. He's kept it out of the gravel, but he's going to be dropping a long way down the order with that.
It was a desperation attempt down the inside, and it didn't work out for Danes, who holds off one Mr. James Leggett through Siberia and keeps going. But look at this, Nico Foggy inside at the hay shed, now up the hill at Lukey Heights, turn 9. Can he hold it around the outside of Johnny Brandon? Brandon's going to try and squeeze him out, but the inside now at MG, it's all Nico Foggy's. On the brakes they go, rubbing panels on the brakes around the outside, trying Johnny Brandon. He's got the inside at 11 to try and fight this one back with, and the inside at 12, which is a one-line Suitsall corner traditionally. And suddenly, what do you do if you're Rich Warmingham? You might get them both if you're a lucky lad and you use the draft to your advantage as they remain side by side coming out of that final corner. And now you start wondering, where do you make that gap? They're taking up all the road. It's a traffic jam. It's a log jam. 23 thousandths cross the line. 3 laps to go. Brandon looking again around the outside of turn 1. You can get it done there at Durham. And is this move going to be done at the Southern Loop, which is probably the most definitive place to make this happen? And Johnny Brandon finally does.
This is fantastic racing between the two championship leaders, the two race leaders, and Rich Warmingham right on their tail as well. I don't expect to want to get in the way of his teammates' championship fight, but anyway, here comes Johnny Brandon again. Brand the outside, he's got the inside, and he's going to have...
Brandon's too deep.
Yeah, Johnny Brandon back into the... Oh, he's gone deep. So Johnny Brandon deep. Nicole Foggy claims it back. Nicole Foggy leads the race.
It looked very much similar to Mitchell de Jong and Gregor Hutu in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series of 2017. That one was very much a case of go too deep and hope you survive, and it didn't work. Couldn't get it slowed up enough. So now you start wondering here if you're Johnny Brandon. Sit back on the final lap, try and find a way through, try and force Nico Foggy to go out there and be aggressive, or maybe something else. They go on the brakes down the hill at MG for the third to last time. Other battles in this pack include McNally, who's just got through, and Kellyman, and he's got Scott Malcolm, Dean Timms, Lane O'Connor, Carl Jacquelet, and on the back of all that, Andy Maxwell, who will lose a lot of amateur championship points if things stay like this. Remember, he has a...
He does indeed. It's a lead of 37 points going into this round. I'll have to do some calculations between races to work out what the point standings are. But anyway, Nicole Foggy and Johnny Brandon going on to a new lap, with Brandon almost poking out of the slipstream there towards turn 1, although has a disadvantage in the way that turn 1 isn't a braking zone. It's pretty much flat out, very nearly flat anyway, just a slight tap on the brakes sometimes. But anyway, on the exit, oh, he's off. Warmingham's off, sorry. Warmingham ran over the grass there and looked as if he was going to go wider. Did a good job to get it gathered up again before he reached the gravel. Now we've got Brandon again taking a look to the outside of Nicole Foggy. I think again, just trying to pressure him at this point in the race. We've seen all the way through the series that there's no team orders between the two. They have come together before. I don't want to curse it, but with them racing this hard, it could definitely happen again. They're separated by, well, judging by the look of it, probably 0.3 of a second at present. But by the end of this lap, I can imagine it will be pretty much nothing. Johnny Brandon attacking again.
Yeah. Trying to find that move, a lap and a little bit to go. It's not going to happen at MG. It's going to have to happen a little bit later on. Other battles for the top 5, John Roberts, Kip Stevens and Chris Danes, all together, all trying to find that move, and ultimately, all of them not quite there. Kip trying to go for the same gap that one John Roberts managed to get a few laps to go. White flag comes out for Johnny Brandon and Nico Foggy, who leads this race, as the pair of them will scrap this one all the way to the line, you would feel. Is there a chance for Johnny Brandon to go down the inside at turn 1? Oh, you bet he's going to look at 242 kph. That's right on the rev limiter, hitting the red line as they go through. Foggy on the curb into turn 2, defends that inside well. Johnny Brandon a lot more Raggedy Ann through that section. That's where Foggy has found his time over the course of his laps, but he knows draft of the essence. Danes has found a way through on Kip Stevens. He'll try and get back potentially at turn number 4, as will Adam McNally on someone else. But again, defensive from Foggy up into Honda at turn 4, trying to go around the outside. Bit of net code there, and suddenly hung out to dry like yesterday's washing. Johnny Brandon has the world and a bit more to try and deal with. He looked at every which way to make that happen, but ultimately ran the margins just slightly too close. The mid-pack massively battling at the moment as McNally tries to fend off James Leggett, and this is the entirety of the train to the back of the pack, and side by side they go at the moment as they head towards the hay shed and Lukey Heights. Brandon not giving this one up though at the front of the field. Ultimately needs a dive now or a run to the line. A dive now is not there. He's going to have to try and pick the run up through 11 and 12 if this one is going to work. So around the left-hander, is there time? Is there a reason he can pull this gap back? The toe is strong, but I'm not sure it is that strong compared to Nico Foggy. Through the final section they go, and is there going to be anything left? Because Nico Foggy has just proven why he is where he is. He picks up 5 big points against Johnny Brandon and says, I am still the championship leader. Great battling throughout, as every single battle and scrap is going to come towards an end. McNally ended up winning that one outright. What happened to James Leggett, though, in all of this? He has dropped a multitude of time and positions. He got bumped to the back of the train at MG corner, so on the brakes they went, McNally and also James Leggett, and it was a 50-50 move. Leggett just got caught into the gravel, into the grass, and nowhere to go, has to wait to get back on circuit, and that's 8 positions for James Leggett lost.
Yeah, dropped down into 17th place at the end, but what a fantastic scrap between Nico Foggy and Johnny Brandon all the way through, with Foggy fending him off, looking very much like the other famous Foggy, Carl Fogarty, in his defense, in his racecraft, in his winning style. Nico Foggy winning by just 0.272 ahead of Johnny Brandon, and the top 3 separated by less than 0.7 of a second at the end. That's one of the closest finishes I've ever seen to a sim race, and a fantastic race all the way through. It may have taken 20 minutes due to that caution, but I'm sort of glad the caution came out. It bunched the field up. It allowed us to have that hectic scrap to the finish. What a race!
What a race indeed. And official classified results then are as follows. Nico Foggy picks up the win ahead of Johnny Brandon. Rich Warmingham gets third. Steve LaValle there in fourth. XV Racer 1, 2, 3, 4. John Roberts picks up 5th position with Chris Danes in 6th overall. It is 7th come the end for Kip Stevens on an eventful race that makes him +1 for the day. Adam McNally also +1 into 8th place. Charles Kellyman, one of your biggest movers in the field. We saw how John Roberts was up 8 places. Up 9 was Charles Kellyman for his, and that is huge for his amateur category points as he tries to reel it back. Same for Scott Malcolm, 10th place, gets the job done.
11th place in the end was Lane O'Connor, followed by Ethan Bass, Dean Timms, Carl Jackalot, Andy Maxwell, Lee Deemer, James Leggett, who dropped back a lot of places at the end due to that incident. Dan Blake was P18 after running through the pit lane, and then our retirements. Michael Bingham retired about 9 laps ago, and Carl Hardy, I think, did make the start, although certainly didn't make it very far into the race at all.
No start then for Carl Hardy, as we can
Okay.
confirm that one. But
Sorry.
what we are going to do is we're going to turn to Marco, our good friend Marco, who's behind the cameras. He'll spin the wheel for the first reverse grid of the night. We'll get him to spin that wheel and we'll see where that will land. Long pause as we await what we get in terms of a destiny in terms of the wheel. The wheel says 40, so it'll be a full car reverse grid as they go through because we have less than 40 drivers in this field. So a full reverse grid then for the second race of the night. We're going to step aside for one moment here at Forever Sim Racing. Back with more after this. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the British Sim Racers TCR Sunday Cup Showdown finale here from the glorious Phillip Island circuit here in Cowes, Victoria, Australia, as we get ourselves looking at the second race out of 3 tonight. Very minimal movement when it comes to that championship, that margin going up from 37 points to 42. We do realise we've made a slight error on that part. We will change that over the course of the next part. It should be 38 points, 4 points difference. It makes next to nothing at this point in time. Jake Sperry, Caitlin Penny, as well as Marco Barbanera on the cameras, provided by the legendary Dougie Beard. And shout outs and sponsors to those who get it done for us. First and foremost, have to give a shout out to Forcex Design, graphics partners here on this broadcast. On top of that, you have to give a massive shout out as well to Violet. You can catch her stuff, her music on Bandcamp and on Spotify as well. Her new album, Queen of Misfits, out now for purchase at this moment in time. But big battles go on up and down the field. The big battles also encapsulate that amateur category championship, and it was a big eye keeping on what was happening over the course of those battles, because all of a sudden the lead has changed in terms of that championship. It is now Scott Malcolm's championship lead for the amateur category, and that lead is so slender. It's 8 points, but that was all on Andy Maxwell not getting a good race 1, but is primed and ready for this race 2.
Yeah, of course, if race 2 is going to be anything like race 1, it's going to be an absolute thriller. Race 1 had one of the closest finishes that I've ever seen in sim racing, and all the way through, the battling up and down the field was absolutely intense. You didn't know where to look, and in the late stages, it was like Noah's Ark. They all came in 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 by 2, etc., etc. And that does tend to be the case with BSR anyway. These RD RS3 TCR cars, absolutely wonderful for wheel-to-wheel racing, because they're not too what's the word, sensitive, that's it, to turbulent air, and as a result they can follow each other well. They can get side by side as soon as you decide to fling your car up the inside of someone, and as a result you can very much have close races to the extent where you can't in any other type of race car. It's like karting sometimes. Anyway, we're leading up to race 2 now. We've got 3 races today, and we have a partially reverse grid for both of the second 2 races as well, which should keep it very, very interesting indeed. It means that Foggy and Brandon, the 2 main championship contenders, separated by just 38 points, are going to have to fight through, and it's all going to be about who can keep it cleaner and who can get through the traffic.
Well, it's all about who can get through that traffic, who can make that momentum change, which is so very vitally needed. The points have stayed dead level over the course of this, but not many drivers to break a way through. It's going to make life tougher for these drivers, especially over 11 laps, which, if it stays green for, will be only 11 laps worth of racing, will only be 15 minutes worth of racing. So that's something just to keep in mind as they go on through. They've got to be efficient in the way that they break through the field, but every driver has something to fight for. It might be pride, it might be amateur category points, it might be trying to keep a little look in this showdown, because you also look at drivers who are third onwards and backwards in this one, as we are very close to getting ourselves ready. Just 40 seconds or so. Caitlin, very, very briefly. McNally still with a half shot. Same with Chris Daines, but they need miracles. In fact, it's impossible for both of them. The top 2 can only fight for the title.
Sorry, Foggy and Brandon trading lap times at this point. It's only a warm-up session, of course. This doesn't mean anything in terms of the points. Qualifying did, and qualifying was very, very important, since if they'd qualified in a slightly different order, if, for example, Foggy had beaten Warmingham in qualifying, the gap would be even larger by the extent of 2 points. And if he'd finished ahead of Brandon as well and taken that pole position, it would be 6 points. That's it. 6 points larger than it is at present. Of course, 38 points is the gap. That may sound like a lot, but considering you get 80 points for a victory and there are 2 races still to go, it's really not that much at all. And all it's going to take is for one bad race for Nicole Foggy
Uh-huh.
to swing it straight back in Johnny Brannon's favour.
Grid as follows then. 1 minute to grid up. Dan Blake will be on the pole with James Leggett alongside Lee Deemer and Annie Maxwell on the second row. Carl Jackalette and Dean Timms, followed by Ethan Bass and Lane O'Connor. Then it's Scott Malcolm, Charles Kellyman, Adam McNally and Kip Stevens, Chris Danes, John Roberts, Steve LaValle, Rich Warmingham, Johnny Brandon and Nicole Foggy, the title rivals, and Michael Bingham going from 19th. Worth noting about this, Dan Blake may not take to the starting grid. He's having issues with his pedals at the moment. He's having a stuck throttle, which could mean that he may not take to the grid at the front. He will, though, take to the grid at the front. Hopefully, he has a quick fix for that. That was why he was having so many issues in the opening race. But everybody on the grid, lights on top of the iRacing gantry. And the second race of the night, the penultimate round of the championship, is underway. And they get themselves going. A shocker from Annie Maxwell again off the line. The two of the Brit Tech Simsport cars almost come together, and Lee Deemer will try and straggle on through. They're 4 wide in the middle as the XV Racer cars all try and find a way through in the Fracas as they go 3 wide, 2 wide into turn number 1. I think they're all okay. One vehicle's gone off. It's an optical car. Another one is a year 1 car that's gone off. A second optical car off on the inside as well, and straight back onto the circuit. I think everyone has just about got away with it. The second of the year 1 cars, both of them off then in the opening section. So that's both Jackalette and Blake, and that is Blake, who was in the race lead, on pole position to go through. Deemer leads this, Leggett in second, Ethan Bass now up the third trying to attack, and where are you going? Oh, it's a full Rick Kelly moment. It's gone full Rick Kelly. Straight on, 1, 2, 3, 4, not ideal at all. Caution comes out.
Goodness me, yeah, Lee Deemer has been absolutely swiped there. Didn't see exactly how that happened. I'm looking back at it now. Oh, it seems that's Ethan Bass there, who got a touch. Oh, it just came together there with James Leggett, I think. And as you say, the full Rick Kelly then unfolded. I'm not really sure that you can put the blame primarily on one person, but we do have a caution for the second race in a row. I was mainly watching the instance in the opening couple of laps. Of course, Dan Blake went off. Also, Charles Kellyman is now near the back of the field. He had an off, as did now who's that driver? I'm just trying to refresh my memory of who everyone is. Anyway, someone else had a little run off through the grass as well. Not John Roberts. Never mind. Carl Jackalette, that's it, Carl Jackalette. So yeah, a couple of big offs, couple of cars very badly affected. Andy Maxwell dropped to the back, and the order's going to be completely different when we cross the start-finish line. I don't even know who's leading here.
It's Lane O'Connor, who was the catalyst to the caution, got himself caught up with Ethan Bass. And this is the big thing about that instant there, Caitlin. So Lane O'Connor runs into the back of Ethan Bass, and Bass has nowhere to go but to take the Rick Kelly line, goes straight on at the Honda corner. And that, of course, does reference the Supercars finale of 2006, if my memory serves me correct, where it pretty much came down to that big instant with the likes of Lowndes and co. that all got themselves caught up. But separately, an incident between James Leggett and Lee Deemer. Leggett had to get out of the way. I think there may have been netcode between the pair of them, or had to be very worried. He swerved left in avoiding action, completely took Lee Deemer out of the equation, and that ultimately brings the field to where they are now. Lane O'Connor leads, Chris Danes in second, Dean Timms currently in third, Scott Malcolm is fourth with Steve LaValle in fifth, and Kip Stevens now in sixth position. Johnny Brandon in 4 corners gained 10 places. Nicole Foggy has an Adam McNally to get by behind, so that is going to be big in terms of this overall championship. There is breathing room between Foggy and Johnny Brandon.
So Dan Blake leading at, oh sorry, not leading at the end of the first lap. We haven't, the order hasn't, oh it has updated itself. I'm just looking at the wrong thing. My apologies. Lane O'Connor leads from Danes, Timms, Malcolm, and LaValle. In terms of the championship, Johnny Brandon is in 7th place, and Nicole Foggy is in 9th. 7th place will be worth 57 points. 9th worth 53, meaning 4 points difference would put Brandon 34 points from the the back of Nico Foggy, and it seems that he's going to need Foggy to have a bad race in these last two races. He's going to need Foggy to have an incident or two if he's going to bring this championship back. Of course, three other drivers came into today still technically in contention of the championship. Those are Danes, Beard, and McNally. Currently, Danes is second in this race. McNally is eighth. And Beard is not here. So, have we had another incident? I think we may have done.
Oh, dear me, and that would be right near
Oh,
the
we
back of the
have. So
field.
James Leggett just had
Oh,
an off completely on his own behind the safety car, and also Lee Deemer followed him off almost in sympathy. So once again, cars going off behind the safety car. They've sorted themselves out in terms of the order, but I'm pretty sick of seeing cars going off through the grass and spinning sideways when they're supposed to be. It's called caution for a reason.
it's called caution because at the moment, that's what all drivers need to do when they're going around the track. They need to look at everywhere in their mirrors and say, there's a caution behind me. They're still having incident. But what they are being able to do is just bring themselves back down into a fever pitch at the moment. They've got to just calm themselves down and let themselves have that opportunity to go out again and race hard. There's only 19 of them. They know what they need to do, but they do know if you're number 5, Johnny Brandon, there is one big thing that he needs to do. He needs to make sure that Nico Foggy gets stuck behind someone. McNally could be a good candidate for that if he doesn't have what he has done in prior races. And then you've got Kip Stevens, who will not really fight anybody at all. So next question becomes, is Steve Lavallee going to play ball? Scott Malcolm always likes a fight. Dean Timms may fight it. Chris Dane certainly will, but he'll try and run off to the hills. So it may just be who can play the defensive card here today. But I don't think there are many candidates here, Caitlin, very quickly, that can deal with Nico Foggy today.
Well, we're going to find out when the safety car comes in, which will be at the end of this lap. The lights are out. Of course, the car in front of Nico Foggy is Adam McNally, and he won't want to play ball because McNally is third in the championship and technically still in contention, especially if something is to happen to Foggy or Brandon. And as a result, I'm not expecting him to dive out of the way, and we know that McNally can defend, so Foggy's going to have to work to get past him. Another difficult contender to get past will be Johnny Brandon, but even if he can't, he can still wrap up the championship. He could technically wrap up the championship in this race. It's unlikely, and he very much needs a problem for Johnny Brandon if that's going to happen. Although it is a mathematical possibility. But anyway, we're coming to the green flag very shortly.
We certainly are. Lane O'Connor will have control of the field. Chris Danes is always very aggressive off the restarts. You've got to keep an eye out on Danes and what he is capable of doing. He loves a good restart. He's very good at them. Dean Timms behind will try and help as much as possible, as will the likes of Scott Malcolm. But the pace car dives in and everyone was not in position for this. So there's a huge gap to the front two. Lane O'Connor went so quickly. Green flag goes, and Chris Danes was the only one to react to it. Everybody else was pretty much snoozing on the button as they all tried to go through. They've got to make sure they all survive the opening corners, as the front two nose to tail as they go through the opening section. O'Connor and also Danes. Can Danes find a road at the southern loop? He cannot, but he gives a bump to one Lane O'Connor, and O'Connor forced to the outside. They're pushed to pass. Not the way you'd normally see it, but Danes a chrome horn pass to the lead, but redresses it.
So Danes leads from O'Connor, then Tim. Oh, and Connor's gone straight back through. So I think.
Redress.
Oh yeah, you said redresses it. Yeah, he's let him back through there. So obviously felt that it wasn't a fair move. That's good sportsmanship there for Chris Danes. Side by side in the background, Foggy has not yet been able to get past. Well, actually, Brandon's got past Kip Stevens. So Brandon making ground. Foggy not yet making ground. Hasn't quite been able to pass Adam McNally, and actually got a slow exit to that corner. Rich Birmingham had a look at him there. I don't expect that he'll want his teammates to get involved, but anyway, no team orders at that team. Over the crest of the hill they all head, and now Chris Danes is back in front. So Chris Danes leads the race. He's got past Lane O'Connor more fairly this time. He went around the outside pretty much, actually, of the second hairpin there. Good move from Chris Danes, and he leads the race.
Yeah, around the outside of Siberia, that's where the move happened and that's where the move was made, and they'll be very happy. Johnny Brandon's got through on Kip Stevens, and crucially, Nicole Foggy has not got through on anyone, so that gap very much going to be just extending here as Steve LaValle will try and fight away past Scott Malcolm, now leader in the AM category championship by a handful of points, and easily gets through fantastically. And now the gap starts chasing down as the likes of Kip Stevens gets a mega run down this straight. Will he attack Johnny Brandon back? No, he will not, so he'll have to sit and wait as Foggy now catches the back of Adam McNally. The championship very much in the swings and roundabouts balance at this point in time. Foggy's got to be wise to how he makes that move. He knows he's not under much pressure behind because it's his teammate Rich Warmingham, who we saw in race 1, did not want to get involved. Crucial fact is, who's going to make some moves? It's now Scott Malcolm under pressure. Here's the man with a plan, Johnny Brandon trying to get through. Foggy trying to get through on McNally as well. McNally on that inside can defend it better as Scott Malcolm has to give it up, but so late on the brakes is Nicole Foggy. He's breezed by McNally without any issues.
Indeed, he has, and yeah, I said it was going to be hard, but it was easier than I expected. He's now at the inside of Kip Stevens. And,
He won't fight.
Yeah, 3 goes, so that was easier than I expected it to be, with all due respect to Kip Stevens. And the car ahead of him here is Scott Malcolm, but just in front of him is Johnny Brandon. So they're both climbing up like they're rungs on a ladder. And already Foggy taking a look up the inside of Scott Malcolm. Malcolm sees him and doesn't turn across his nose. Still has the inside line, but Foggy has the grip on the outside. And that's going to turn into the inside line again very shortly if he can stick there. This is the final corner of the lap, and Malcolm actually keeping it for the time being. Foggy in the slipstream. Here comes Stevens again. Stevens lost a lot of ground on that last lap.
Oh, look at Johnny Brandon.
And Brandon going as well for Steve LaValle, and both going past Dean Timms.
They were thinking of 3 wide. Johnny Brandon was going for a 3 wide special. Malcolm overtaken now by one Mr. Nicole Foggy, so that one another change as McNally fights the southern loop against Rich Warmingham, and Stevens down the inside of Scott Malcolm, who's suddenly going backwards where Dean Timms isn't, and Timms can start gaining on the points. Now LaValle moves hard to the right-hand side, lets his teammate go through, and that's going to be very crucial. So now Dean Timms has got to fight hard here. There's Nicole Foggy trying to go down the inside, bit of contact between them, and that is a nice move then from Foggy. He gets it done, but it's not complete at Siberia. He's got to be later on the brakes here, and he is move complete then at turn number 6. So very much chased down every step of the way. Front 2 have broken away. Chris Daines and Lane O'Connor at the moment, and side by side, LaValle is not going to insert himself into the fight. He allows Nicole Foggy to go through up into 4th position. Damage limitation once again, and now there are 5 laps to chase down those at the front, and that's about 2 seconds worth of time to try and chase now here, Caitlin.
Johnny Brandon up into 3rd position. He's in the podium places.
Ooh,
and you can see Lane O'Connor just up the road. Dean Timms now, ooh, wow, a bit of a roadblock there, a bit of a bottleneck is just behind him. He's got McNally, Roberts, and Maxwell getting involved almost as well. No, Maxwell's dropped back. Maxwell's dropped a long way back, so I think Maxwell's had a problem on that last lap. But anyway, Kip Stevens getting in
3 wide.
Actually going alongside McNally and Warmingham. That's close up towards turn 1. And I think Warmingham's going to have the inside line. He does, but McNally sticks it there, and if he can keep it, he's going to have the inside. And Warmingham, I expect, will want to help his teammates, his ex-V-Racer teammates. McNally keeping it on the inside, keeping the place, and the Excite Energy driver needed to do that. That was pretty crucial for him there.
It was a crucial move, and it's one that keeps McNally happy in position. McNally out of the championship fight now after that opening round of that race that we had just a little bit earlier on. So it's going to be a case of what can you do at this stage in time. Side by side continues here as John Roberts finds himself through on Scott Malcolm, who continues to go backwards through this field. And now McNally trying to attack Dean Timms, who needs as many points as possible on one driver going dead backwards, and that being Scott Malcolm. Dean Timms, of course, when you talk about the championship perspective for him. He is 4th in that championship, 5-1-7-1, 50 points back. Needs everything, but he's in the grass, and I was too busy looking at the championship points. He came together with McNally, who tried to move over to take his natural racing line. Timms was having none of it. Timms gets sent to the gravel at Lukey Heights, able to save it, but surely now his title challenge is over as Bass gets down the inside of James Leggett. He can't do anything about it. All of a sudden, gap is halved between Johnny Brandon and Lane O'Connor as they look to try and go for a back-to-back race victory.
The gap between the two of them is, well, they're crossing the line now. Oh, yes, that's just a second. So it came right the way down. That's wonderful. Brandon really on the hunt, and he will feel like a tiger stalking its prey. Lane O'Connor, very green, looking like a very bright target at this point in time. And he's still fighting with Chris Danes. So Brandon knows that if he can maybe use Lane O'Connor to distract Danes, he can get 2 in 1. And sees him just up the road for the taking. We're getting to the end of the race now. Just a few laps to go, and he's right on the back of him. Look at that! That last corner, he gained about 3/10 in.
More than that, I would have thought 4-5 potentially, because he's tucked up now, looking for how this battle's going to go. On the break at Honda Corner is where most time is gained around this track. You need to be ferocious around this Phillip Island circuit. It's not a track for the faint of heart. You need to be on the edge every single lap, every single corner, and that's what Johnny Brandon is at this point in time. Can he get past teammate Lane? No, they can't, but all of them on the back of Chris Danes, who's going to fight with everything that he's got, fighting now for pride. His championship unavailable at this point as they go on and keep going, but Chris Danes knows that he's got to get something going here. He's got to try and break away. Lane O'Connor was the slowest of the 5V racer cars, or XV racer cars, as they came into battle. So now Lane O'Connor, what do you do? Where do you look? Do you defend this now against Johnny Brandon? He may think about it with 3 laps to go. Try and race this one for a bit of pride. Down the inside, does not fight it. And I expect he won't fight Foggy either. So this will be parity between the two teammates. Foggy thinking of a way around the outside. Doesn't fight it for the moment. Now Chris Danes has got to be a wily old fox here.
Chris Danes does indeed. Of course, Danes still technically in the championship fight, although it is slipping further and further away from, especially with Brandon and Foggy's gone through to 3rd. So especially with Brandon and Foggy now on the podium with him, looking for their second consecutive podiums each, and Chris Danes dropping back into their clutches. Here come Brandon and Foggy, who may end up fighting for the lead once again, as we've seen so many times this season since the departure of Rensport Online. Here they come, and Danes may be about to get freight trained.
Well, he's got to be so cautious about the way that he battles. They do scrap behind. Warmingham, McNally, Kip Stevens in there, John Roberts, Scott Malcolm trying to stay with this as well. Andy Maxwell just behind that. And they fanned out 4 wide there, heading to Lukey Heights. They all looked at a way to go through, and all of them said, nope, not happening. Train of 5, and suddenly it's Danes against the machine once again. 4 XV racer cars trying to chase him down, but he's now got to play uber defense, the ultimate of ultimate defenses now, with 2 laps to go as he crosses the line. But again, draft becomes so vital, and again, here is Johnny Brandon moving to the outside, and now Shepherd across to the left-hand side tries one Chris Danes, as he will now have to defend hard on this inside against the outside. Johnny Brandon uses all the curb, tries to use all the road, blocks the runoff and says, car clear. Oh, bit of contact there, 1 touch and 2 touch, and here's Foggy trying to take advantage around the outside, and suddenly it's a multicolour rainbow behind, trying to take around Chris Danes, who's having none of it.
How did nothing happen there? How did nothing change? How did no one get spewed off into the gravel? That was amazing. Here comes the XV Racer train. Johnny Brandon to the outside line. Steve LaValle going for Lane O'Connor as well. Brandon forced wide. Nico Foggy up the inside line, taking advantage, going through to 2nd. Foggy takes it. Brandon's still there, so not quite. Brandon takes it back, and Foggy would have thought he'd had it done there. Very, very close. Now he's and Danes gets over the curb slightly on the exit, gets a little bit bored. Brandon going through surely. He's on the inside line with the sea in the background, and Brandon is on the outside
No!
again.
Bang!
There he goes. Brandon off into the gravel. Brandon to the back of the chain. He'll be down in 5th position. Nico Foggy now going for the lead as well. And that is going to have severe effects on Johnny Brandon's championship.
And that's just where it hits home hardest, because here's Nico Foggy, who can now put a rubber stamp almost directly over this championship if it stays like this. Gotta get past Chris Danes though. Danes is a tough cookie to crack, and again will go the same way that Johnny Brandon did, around the outside trying to get it done. Lane O'Connor is going to try and follow in as well, try and be as much help as possible. Danes does not have that run on the inside, and Foggy's got what he wants, but is it roles reversal here on the brakes? No, it's not. Danes leaves the room but can go out there, can be aggressive back, but needs the power off the exit, does not have it, and suddenly Foggy gets himself 2-3 car lengths now of advantage, and Lane O'Connor might just decide to attack this one, same way he did on lap 1, which caused incident with another one of those BritTech SimSport cars. On the brakes they go and trying to get in the mirrors. You're not going to phase Nico Foggy like that. Johnny Brandon there in 5th place. Behind him, there is Adam McNally down the inside of one John Roberts, the gentleman. And back for the AM category, it's on Bass, Maxwell, Blake, Leggett all together. This is for Maxwell's point, trying to chase down. He's having a big hard scrap, trying to get everything that he can. Still side by side between both McNally and John Roberts at this point in time. Up the hill to Lukey Heights though for Nico Foggy, who's extending his lead over Chris Danes, getting the move done on the final lap and has been impervious so far. It is going to be again Nico Foggy. He got some help this time from Chris Danes, but ultimately it is going to be an extension of the championship. It is retirement or bust now, surely, for one Mr. Johnny Brandon. You need the ultimate plan now, because crossing the line, Nico Foggy has now got himself a hand on the BSR TCR title. A back-to-back victory for the first time this season. Danes will take second ahead of Lane O'Connor. That margin, 500ths of a second between them, with Steve LaValle coming home in 4th place. 5th for Johnny Brandon will hurt so hard. And in terms of amateur category points, Scott Malcolm will increase that lead, not by much, but will increase that lead.
57 points by my calculations is what separates Foggy from Brandon now, so that means the championship is pretty much over. So long as, in fact, so do they get points if they don't finish?
They need to be within one lap.
Okay, in that case, if Foggy finishes in the top 18, he wins the championship. Basically, he just needs to finish this next 30-minute race in order to win the championship. But yeah, really, really exciting race once again, and another thrillingly close finish, with Foggy winning by just 0.832 seconds from Danes, and the top 3 separated by less than 9/10 of a second, with Lane O'Connor right in there as well. And I'd like to point out, actually, a lot of people are jumping straight to blaming Chris Danes for that accident with Johnny Brandon, although I actually think it was 50-50. I think that they didn't give each other enough space. I think if you look, Brandon actually came down on Chris Danes, and yeah, Danes wasn't on the curb, but really that's just a racing incident between the two of them. But anyway, it has ended up costing Brandon more, and now Nico Foggy pretty much has the championship. He's got more than a hand on it. He's got a hand and 3 fingers on the trophy, and now he just needs to seal the deal with a finish in race 3.
Well, it was mighty close between them. They came through on the brakes. There was a little wiggle. It was a case of you got a corner where you got to try and pinch. Danes always held his line through that section, was never arcing out. He was always on his same line. It's very much a racing instant between them, but this is how it finishes then on round 32 of the championship. Nico Foggy picks up back-to-back victories for the first time this season, and that's a big, big statement as he takes off a win with 8/10 an advantage, getting past Chris Danes on the final lap. Lane O'Connor will finish in 3rd after causing the safety car, with Steve LaValle 4th and Johnny Brandon losing point. Number 5 finishing position number 5. Rich Warmingham will come home 6th. Adam McNally in the end does get 7th ahead of John Roberts. Scott Malcolm increases his AM category championship lead in 9th. Kip Stevens rounds the top 10.
11th place, Ethan Bates, followed by Andy Maxwell, then Dan Blake, James Leggett, Lee Deemer, Carl Jacklett, Dean Timms, Charles Kellyman, and Michael Bingham. Good to see 19 drivers out of 19 finishing. But anyway, that's the lot.
That's the lot indeed, but anything can happen and normally does. And we got one final round of the championship for Johnny Brandon now. Win or bust. That's all he's got for the moment for Nico Foggy. It is finish. Don't finish last. If you finish last, that's bust. But we'll go to Marco Barbanera for the final time this season. We'll spin the wheel. We'll see where this final reverse grid is going to come out, and we're going to see how this one will all play out. The reverse is 20. It's a full reverse grid that will put Michael Bingham on the pole position. So a full reverse grid to finish the night. Nico Foggy starts in the place he doesn't want to, but he knows that he only needs to get past one driver in this field to secure the title. We'll step aside for the final time this season. We'll be back with the finale, the final round of the championship, round 33, after this.
Shadows dancing through the air. Her breath congeals before her eyes. The snow falls inside to the bitter beating of her heart. farm. Shadows dancing through the air. Her breath congeals before her eyes. The snow falls inside to the bitter beating of her heart.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the British Sim Racers TCR Sunday Cup. It's the finale here with Forever Sim Racing. It does not get much more clutch than this. The stakes are very simple. Nicole Foggy needs a P18 or higher to secure the title. And for one Mr. Johnny Brandon, he has one thing that he needs to do, and that is win, and win a little bit more. It's going to be tough, though. It's a reverse grid race, and starting from the very back will be one Nicole Foggy, who has put 2 straight victories on the table and is in line for the first time this season to put a clean sweep available to everybody going forward. A massive thanks, though, of course, to those who get it done. And, of course, they go to Force X Designs, graphic partners, over the course of this broadcast. And as well, of course, to Violet, you can catch her new album, Queen of Misfits, on Bandcamp and on Spotify as well. But more importantly than that, you got to talk as well about the difference here, Caitlin, in the Amateur Championship at the moment, because it is close. It is 14 points splitting Scott Malcolm and Andy Maxwell together. Malcolm had the best run. Maxwell struggled in the early stages of that race. It's between those two, so 2 championships, and we have to say that Amateur Championship is a lot less clear-cut.
I see this as outright pace or qualifying pace versus a slight race pace advantage and consistency. Scott Malcolm, one of the most consistent drivers in the field, always tends to finish around and about the same position, or always tends to be running around and about the same position, the lower order of the top 10, or the higher positions in the 11th, 12th, 13th, etc. But Andy Maxwell has had some real flashes of pace at various points in the season, but hasn't been quite as consistent as, say, Scott Malcolm. So I think that's why Scott Malcolm's slightly ahead. But if Andy Maxwell has one of his turns of pace in this last race of the season, first of all, that's going to gain him more since it's a longer race, 30 minutes, and secondly, since there's only 14 points separating them, that could very much swing the AM Championship in his favour.
It very much could, and you've got to keep an eye on that and how that could play into a very big factor of the racing. We'll keep an eye out on Maxwell versus Scott Malcolm for this championship. It is worth noting that Andy Maxwell has led the championship for the majority of this season. He's picked it up right from what happened at, of course, the start of the Showdown. He picked it up just before that as well, with great runs at the likes of Monza. We'll see how he plays out as he tries to fight back a deficit of 14 points, which by my reckoning equates to about 5 positions needed if they fall down the field. We'll see how this goes. Maxwell had a shocking start for his championship run over in the last race. But for Nicole Foggy, just what goes through your head? Championship on the line here at Phillip Island. He knows only 1 position to get. Is he going to just try and stick it out of trouble?
That's what he's got to do, surely. It's just what he's got to do. Of course, if Foggy has the opportunity to go for higher positions, then I'm sure that he will. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter if he gets involved in an incident or two, since these cars are built like tanks, and so long as he can still continue and finish the race, he will still pick up those points. But anyway, he won't want to risk anything, because if it goes just slightly too wrong, it could all swing straight back to Johnny Brandon, and it would be heartbreaking to lose it at the final round, especially to the racer you've been racing and just slightly beating all the way through the season. But anyway, we're now gridding up for race 3.
We are. Charles Kellyman will be on the pole, Dean Timms alongside, followed by Carl Jacqueline and Lee Deemer. James Leggett will go from 5th, Dan Blake in 6th, with Andy Maxwell 7th, and Ethan Bass in 8th. Kip Stevens starts 9th, Scott Malcolm will go from 10th place. Then it's John Robertson, Adam McNally, Rich Warmingham, then Johnny Braden, Steve LaValle, Lane O'Connor, Chris Daines, and Nicole Foggy. Only 18 drivers taking to this grid. No Michael Bingham. This means one big thing for Nicole Foggy. He knows he just needs to stay within 2 laps of the drivers in front. He knows that points are going to be hard to come by here to try and lose it. It will take 2 big incidents for this one to go wrong for Foggy. But Scott Malcolm and Andy Maxwell, their battle's strong as well. Final race of the season gets underway, and it slow starts at the front. Who can get themselves a good getaway? As now the middle of the pack starts to bunch up as they all go through. It was a clean start for the likes of Scott Malcolm. Clean start for Andy Maxwell and for everyone else. 3 wide almost into turn 1. Kellyman holding off Timms, but Timms around the outside has the inside at turn number 2. Can he get there down on the brakes? Yes, he can. And all of a sudden following through is Carl Jacquelet, who's going to try and get both of them. John Roberts falls off, and so does James Leggett. So both Boosted cars off in the background, and one of the optical cars struggling slow towards the back, and it is Andy Maxwell. So now champion-elect for the AM Championship is Scott Malcolm if things stay like this.
Yeah, Maxwell there just running over the grass, driving back, made slight contact with Rich.
Off goes Jacquelet.
Both got away with it, and Jacquelet now is in a little bit of trouble. I'm just trying to catch a look at that. He's dropped a long way back, so Carl Jacquelet there has run off. Oh, contact.
Yep, it's Bass, and he's come together with, I believe, that's Charles Kellyman, who drops down the order, so not ideal off this start. Foggy's had a stormer, but an even better stormer from Johnny Brandon, but that won't matter too much. Don't be too aggressive here, Nicole. You know you can't afford to retire from this race. You know you've got to limp it home no matter what happens to you at this one. A look to the inside from Lee Deemer on Dean Timms, and Timms got scared. Timms went off. Timms got scared, and just like that, there is Lee Deemer up into the race lead through a bit of scaredy-catness there from Dean Timms, and he got almost ushered out of the way without any contact. That was the almighty push.
So many people from the pointy end of the field running off the road on the first lap, and look at this, Johnny Brandon's up to 3rd already. That's an incredible start from Johnny Brandon, and he's side by side with Chris Daines, and actually Dan Blake going for the lead as well. Brandon up the inside and gets P3 into turn 1. Nicole Foggy also coming through on this opening lap of the race. They've gained masses and massive ground. Kip Stevens is off, and he's going to run wide and lose a place to Warmingham, and also in the background Adam McNally's been off the road, and spinning is Maxwell. Contact with James Leggett, so there's more carnage further back. They've all and Kellyman, oh no, Kellyman's got together with and there's a caution flag again. 3 races in a row with a caution flag. That was contact with Dean Timms. Nowhere to go for those guys. Maxwell got spun around again, ended up facing backwards over the road, and John Roberts would have come around that corner, seen cars pointing backwards, sideways, 90-degree angles up on the banking, and would have just thought, heck, what's happened here?
Well, what happened here indeed, everyone coming around in a big, big accident between all of those near the back. A hit after hit after hit, a turnaround which was never going to be useful. But ultimately, it is a 3rd straight caution then for 3 straight nights. It's 50 minutes, it's 19 laps. It's a longer race distance here, this one. So these drivers know they've got to go out there. They know they've got to be aggressive drivers, but they can't afford to be that aggressive. And suddenly this race gets neutralized for the 3rd straight time. It has worked very well for these drivers in the field. They know what they need to do now to get through. This is how it's going to stack. So Lee Deemer in control at the front of the field, Dan Blake in 2nd, and Johnny Brandon up to 3rd. It's Daines in 4th, it's Foggy in 5th, and Bass now in 6th position. So that's crucial. Scott Malcolm is in 10th overall at the moment, but keep an eye out on where Andy Maxwell is in comparison. He's right at the back of the field in dead last 18th and has it all to do from there.
So as they cross the line, Lee Deemer is leading from Dan Blake, then Johnny Brandon, Chris Daines, Nicole Foggy, Ethan Bass, Rich Warmingham, Kip Stevens, Steve LaValle, and Scott Malcolm are the top 10. No one going through the pit lane. That's good to see. We've got 18 drivers, so we did lose race 2. However, still everyone running despite many cars being hampered in these early stages of the race. Now, let's see if we can get a clean yellow flag period. That's weird to say, but we've seen 2 safety cars so far today, and drivers went off behind both of them. So keep it clean, guys. Keep steady. Lee Dima almost backing up the field, but that's okay. We've still got one more lap of safety car after this one, so they've got time to sort themselves out. But yeah, looking at the championship contenders, Johnny Brandon is in 3rd position as it stands, and he needs to win this race if he wants even a chance of winning the championship. But he also needs Nicole Foggy to retire, and Nicole Foggy is currently running in 5th position, so that's unlikely.
Well, on top of this as well, James Leggett has been involved in 3 instances where he's been turned around in 3 straight races too. So James Leggett very much unhappy with the way that his racing's gone. He's been pretty much the village post. He's been hit from pillar to post from every which way, and it seems that everybody wants to give him a knock, so to speak, as they go on through. So he's going to be very unhappy with the amount of virtual dents that he has to take out of his vehicle moving on forward. So that will not be what is part of the script. But what is part of the script is just how aggressive these drivers will be at the front of the field. We know Lee Dima does like to defend, is good at defending. Dan Blake is a very nifty character, had a race win earlier on this season. He managed to pick that one up at Silverstone. So now what can these 2 drivers do, who are on the outside fringes of the pro scene, now looking to deal with the starlets, Danes and Foggy and Bass and Brandon and Warmingham and Kip Stevens and all the rest, who are going to be very hungry here, Caitlin, to go behind. One vehicle does look... Oh, no, we have one off. It's Steve LaValle, and he's in the fence, and he was trying to deal with his wheel. Oh, my goodness me. Did he just jam the handbrake on?
I think he may have done, because suddenly the rear axle up and he veered off towards the bounced across the road in the other direction, and when he needed to turn on the handbrake, he didn't. So Steve LaValle there dropping to 17th position, and that's clumsy, as we've seen behind the safety car so many times today. I can't believe we've had 3 safety car periods, and these drivers just don't seem to know what the word caution means.
Well, they've all been caught up in it, and they all will probably get a big stern tailing off with the way that this goes. Lights, of course, off on top of the iRacing Porsche first safety car means we will go green this next time by. But Caitlin, very, very quickly, Nicole Foggy does not need to be up as high as he does. He knows that this race is going 8 laps longer than the one race that they had, as Kip Stevens decides he wants to drive up through the field and be a bit of a nightmare there for a lot of other drivers. But ultimately, you have to ask this question here, Caitlin. What is everyone going to be doing here at this stage? What is Nicole Foggy going to think about? Is he really going for 3 straight victories?
So, one thing I noticed in the first 2 races is that even with the caution, or possibly as a result of the caution, the race was much longer than I expected it to be. I thought it would be shorter than that, even with the safety car period. So I'm wondering whether this race is going to go out maybe to even 40 or 50 minutes. But anyway, that means that tyres are going to be an issue by the end of it. Yeah, they've had an opportunity to cool down behind the safety car, but still, this is a 19-lap race, and they may end up being kind of glad that the safety cars come out and taken the pressure off their tyres for this time. But anyway, Nicole Foggy, as we keep saying, just needs to focus on finishing the race. Johnny Brandon, in fact, Brandon and Foggy were separated by a car before all of this, so someone's dropped back in.
No, they still are. They still very much are. It's Chris Danes, who's in 4th position at the moment. Nicole Foggy's there in 5th position.
That last lap, Foggy actually crossed the start-finish line just ahead of Danes, which confused me.
But
So,
by 1,000. So here's the restart. And keep
Okay,
this
here we
in
go.
mind. So Dima goes very late, really backed up the pack as the green flag will drop and we'll get back underway here on lap 5. out of 19. So here's Lee Deemer trying to push Blake in second. Brandon now up into third place as they make their push over the line. Everybody line astern. John Roberts came in, made a stop. He's on fresh tyres. Andy Maxwell trying to get in as well. In terms of these battles, they're all nice and fine through the early sections. On the brakes they go through this left hand of the Southern Loop. And there is Johnny Brandon trying to attack back as Nickel Foggy on the back of Chris Danes here, trying to find a way through. Is there going to be a lane at the end? Trying to think about the inside potentially, defended ever so slightly, but loves the outside line. Or has he gone too deep? He has, and he's out into the alfalfa on the outside. Got to gather it up and hope nobody runs into him, and he's got away with it. A mistake from Foggy, and that'll be respite for Johnny Brandon, who knows that Foggy is still mortal.
Little bit of a mistake in the background as, well, James Leggett ended up getting a bit sideways. He's not side. Charles Kellyman place to Adam McNally, and that's over 14th position near the back. Sorry, 15th position at this point in time. So fighting going on all the way through the field, although I want to keep an eye on the top 5 who are still in a chain. Actually, no, because he dropped back a bit. It's turned into a 4-way scrap for the lead. But yeah, Foggy has been making a couple of mistakes today. Of course, he lost the lead in race 1 due to a similar mistake before gaining it back again. And needs to keep control of the car, because the only thing that can stop him from winning this championship is if he goes into the wall, and Warmingham is running wide.
Very wide, actually, there through the final corner. You always have to hold your breath. You can bounce up over that bumps over out outside.
And Deemer's off from the lead. Deemer goes off from the lead just as Dean Timms did on the opening lap of the race. Dan Blake takes the lead. Brandon through to second. Danes through to third. Deemer drops to fourth after leading the race for several laps, leading the safety car restart. Just misjudged it going into turn 1. He got over the curb and off he went into the weeds.
Yep, too aggressive on that inside curb, and Lee Deemer pays the price for it. Warmingham trying to get back past Ethan Bass around the outside, trying. And can this move get done? No is the answer. So that is a good defense there from Bass, who can immediately go to Lee Deemer and start trying to be aggressive. Scott Malcolm still in 10th position, mind you, exactly where he started, and still has that big gap over Maxwell in 17th. Title still his for the moment for the amateurs. Stevens comfortably lets through Nicole Foggy. Won't have any arguments with that. That's the way that Kip Stevens drives. But Dan Blake, under pressure from Johnny Brandon, wants the race lead here, wants to run away with this one, and if anything, prevent a clean sweep for Nicole Foggy. On the brakes they go. Chris Danes wanted to get in. They came together last race, remember this. So Chris Danes feeling like he's got a bit to prove, but Dan Blake, year 1, trying to fight off 2 very, very quick drivers as quickly as he possibly can, but he's got a full another 12 laps when he crosses the line. Sorry, 13 when he crosses the line. So unlucky for some. Here comes one Johnny Brandon to the outside.
Brandon going for the lead now to the outside towards turn 1. And they've got Chris Danes with them as well. Brandon sweeps through to the lead. That's the dangerous curb that caught out Lee Deemer a lap ago. Now we've got Danes trying to follow him through on the inside of Dan Blake. That might well work, and it does work. So Brandon leads, Danes second, and Dan Blake drops to third place. I suppose if Brandon's not going to win the championship today, he'll still gain he'll still get consolation for doing a good job today, getting that race win. Meanwhile, Nicole Foggy and Rich Warmingham have swapped places, and Foggy can now go after the cars in front of him as through as well there. Goes Steve Ethan Bass rather.
And Kip Stevens as well has run into trouble down at Honda. Was very much looking at where to hit the braking point, and he got deep in on the brakes, runs into the side of Rich Warmingham, finds himself in on the inside there of Honda, and now has dropped back behind Carl Jacquelet, so that drops him back to 11th place on the road. Another position then for Scott Malcolm in his charge to the amateur category title, which at the moment there is nothing you can do if you're Andy Maxwell. The pace is just very clearly not there, and you're relying on incident now to try and pull your way forward. Still, though, top three happy where they are. Fourth is Nicole Foggy trying to lead the train. He's just gone through on Lee Deemer now, up into that position. He got that done coming out of the Hayshed corner at turn 8, turn 9. And here at Lukey Heights, he just breezed by round the outside. Later on the brakes, he didn't leave much room for error. Deemer could have very easily have turned him, but ultimately, fourth place now for Nicole Foggy. He'll be proud.
Yeah, and he'll win a podium if he... Anyway, and to seal his championship, he's passed Lee Deemer and up into 4th position. And continuing to chase down the top three now, Blake, Danes, and Brandon still in a line. Actually, Brandon not free yet, not completely in the clear. He may have the lead, but he's still got cars to be wary of who could still benefit from the slipstream, could still go for a lunge. Especially Chris Danes. We've seen Danes and Brandon come together once already today. But anyway, Nicole Foggy starting to chase them down. Birmingham and Bass very close as well. I'm expecting there to be a slight change there as we've got Jacqueline side by side with McNally. So Jacquelette's lost a bit of time on that lap to have dropped back to Adam McNally, and McNally has to back out of it for the time being. But yeah, Jacquelette dropping back a few places on that lap. But anyway, yeah, let's keep an eye on the front of the field, because things I think will still swap around towards the end of the race.
We'll see if that does become the case. They go through. So Brandon leading, Danes in second, Blake in third, Foggy trying to chase this one all down. But again, McNally down the inside through turn 11. Gets it done at 12, so had to work for that overtake there. Was very much quicker, looking for an angle to try and get down the inside. Door was left open by Jacquelette through turn 11, and that was very easily done. But Jacquelette going to come back here on the outside, looking to try and get it done at turn 1, and it's so tough to make it work around the outside. Doesn't have the confidence to hold it there, and McNally very easily can hold that position using the inside track, which can be very, very accomplished with at the moment. Keeping an eye on Foggy's times. He was the fastest man that last run through by a full 0.3 of a second. So it's clearly in Nicole Foggy's mind. He wants one thing and one thing only, Caitlin, and that is 3 straight wins as Warmingham dives down the inside, gets it done on Bass.
Indeed, that's a change for 6th. This point in time, Lee Deemer just ahead of them, so it may soon turn into a fight for 5th position. But anyway, the race still changing at this point in time. We're on lap 9, I think, or lap 8, out of 19, so not even halfway through yet. And I'd be surprised if Nicole Foggy didn't catch up to the back of Dan Blake by the end of at least the next lap. He's very nearly on top of him already. And I think Foggy's put on pretty much the drive of the race so far, 18th to 4th. And actually, Chris Danes, I didn't realise Danes has started from 17th on the grid. Indeed, he has. So Danes has done a wonderful job to already be up in 2nd position. Had the lead briefly before Johnny Brandon came through. Actually, no, he didn't. I was thinking of Dan Blake there. But anyway. Still, those guys at the front doing a wonderful job, and that's what I'm talking about in terms of how you have to fight your way through. And the quicker you can get through, the more of a chance you have. Anyway, Lee Deemer under pressure from Rich Warmingham into turn 1, so it has already turned into the fight for 5th now, with Bass right behind them as well. Sweeping through the left hand, the Deemer's gone wide. He's on the grass, hangs onto the car, but loses 2 positions to Warmingham and Bass.
It happens just like that, so Lee Deemer loses positions, and all of a sudden, here's Lane O'Connor trying to attack Scott Malcolm here for 9th and 10th, and this is where O'Connor got into contact earlier on in the racing, and he just got an angle down to that inside. Scott Malcolm, wise to it is the Scotsman, and decides to think better of it. Now there's Kip Stevens just behind Adam McNally, Carl Jacquelette, all there, wants to gain positions. Maxwell has used the pace of Leggett to pull back to Charles Kellyman. Crucial for Maxwell to try and pull this gap back. He knows better than anybody else. He needs to beat one Scott Malcolm by 4 or 5 places. He's down by, at this point in time, with Scott Malcolm in 10th place, he's down 7. He needs to find a net gain of 12 overall, and that is miracle maker stuff. If he can get that done on the break, Steve Lavalley on Lee Deemer, no dice. Same for Warmingham versus Ethan Bass, no dice. And at the moment, Nicole Foggy has just caught the back of Dan Blake.
through the back end of the course towards the start-finish straight again. Brandon leading by just a couple of tenths of a second from Danes, but just behind him as well, Dan Blake and Nicole Foggy right closer than they've been throughout the whole of the race so far. Also warming up the base, and look at Dima and Lavalley now. Lavalley to the inside, that 7th position looks to be going his way. This is where Dima lost the lead a few laps ago. Dima still keeping it on the outside. That's going to turn into the inside now, and keeping the position as it stands. There we go. They're about 5 seconds behind the leaders as it is at present, but they won't care about that. They'll just care about this scrap at this point in time, about who gets that 7th position. And and it's going to go the way of Lavalley. Actually, Lavalley held on to him for a very, very long time, and needed to, because he knew an inside line was coming up before long, but would have been a lot longer than he wanted. Still got the place. That's a good move from Steve Lavalley.
It's a very good move, and Lavalley has done well. Foggy all over the back of the year one car. Here's Dan Blake trying to think about defense and which way do you go. It's middle of the road driving here. Good use of experience then from Dan Blake, but Foggy's going to try and go the long way round at the MG hairpin on the brakes. Is he going to try and open it up, pick a pocket? But again, nice and neat, nice and narrow on that inside is Dan Blake. No chance of Foggy to go out there and make that move. So Nickel Foggy's going to have to rely on around the outside of turn 1 once again. Scott Malcolm under so much pressure here. This is Carl Jacquelet down the inside at turn 11. And you know what? Scott Malcolm can afford to hemorrhage these positions. Still has himself 3-4 spaces on Andy Maxwell. That's the only crucial fact he has. He has time to burn at this stage. Here's Nicole Foggy round the outside of turn number 1, and that is overtake personified once again. You could not stop him if you tried there, Dan Blake.
Yeah, Nicole Foggy, unstoppable. He's like a force of nature when he's in his element. He's now up into the podium positions, just has Danes and Brandon in front of him. And I tell you what, since we're not even half the way through the race here, actually we've just passed the halfway point in the race, he could still win this, and that would be an amazing way to round out the championship, especially since he had such a disadvantage on the safety car restart. Had so many cars between him and the front, Brandon and Danes did, and he's already on the tail of them, despite the mistake he made earlier on. I think Foggy is so much quicker in terms of race pace than anyone else in the field so far today. Johnny Brandon leading, Chris Danes making a slight error, car getting a little bit loose on entry, had to take 2 bites of the apple and lost about a tenth of a second in that. And Nicole Foggy, well, he smells blood in the water, you could say.
He certainly does, and now how shark-like is Nicole Foggy going to be with Chris Danes, as he knows that Johnny Brandon is now extending that gap over a second. It's going to be a long slog to get away back through, as Nicole Foggy knows, but I think Foggy net overall has gained, and immediately to the left-hand side goes Chris Danes, trying to get on the racing line quickly, and Foggy gains 3 tenths on Johnny Brandon, but Danes loses 4, so all of a sudden Chris Danes having to play defense here for second position, with Nicole Foggy chasing this down. Lap 13 of 19. Just 7 laps to go. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. And now, all of a sudden, a great run again from Foggy. He's so good coming out to the southern loop. He makes the move to the inside, heading towards the Casey Stoner corner. And now, from one Ducati legend to one Audi legend, that is Nicole Foggy looking to the outside, trying to get the move sorted here at the Honda hairpin. And oh, there's a bump. And he just about saves it there. Great work from Nicole Foggy, but Danes wasn't always going to give him just enough room side by side as McNally gets through on Lane O'Connor.
That was close. That was very close there. And actually, back into that, into Dan Blake now. I expect he's going to catch up to Chris Danes before long. That's given Brandon some more breathing space. We'll see what the gap is when they start finish line. I'm estimating about probably 2 seconds at point in time. But yeah, Nicole Foggy there getting a little bit crossed up, and that could have been much, much worse. They're just lucky it happened in a slower corner than a faster corner. Otherwise, he would probably spat off just like Johnny Brandon was in race 1. Anyway, continuing to chase Danes down, they're now about to cross the start-finish line again, so we'll see what the gaps are between those drivers, and if there have been any changes in the order further back, because I see that we've got a close fight between a couple of similarly liveried cars. Dima there versus, or O'Connor's got past Dima, so that's a change there for 8th place.
Here's a change for 8th place. Here's Kip Stevens trying to get past Lee Demon now as well. So Lee's going to have to try and defend hard against Kip, who goes to the inside trying to get this one sorted through the long sweeping right of turn 1. Mick Doohan corner, and not going to get that done coming off of the Gardner Straight. So for Lee Deemer, always good at turn 1. It's the rest of the track where he's sort of being let down a little bit. Take 2 though for Nicole Foggy. He could have a run here on Chris Danes. Made to side, outside line again. He's had 1 bite here, it hasn't worked. 2 bites here, hasn't worked. On the brakes, can't go up and under. Give him a bump maybe to say I'm here. And now suddenly Chris Danes knows he's in that scrap, he's in that fight, and he can't afford to take too long. He's got 5 laps to hold on to that second, but ultimately this becomes a case of willpower. Who's got enough to try and fight against each other here? Foggy up the hill, heading towards Lukey Heights. Can he find the move? Looks to the outside. It's always brave to go around the outside of Chris Danes, but it seems the only way it's working at the moment. Now looking to the outside again at turn 10. It seems that you're on the outside looking in, my friend. No chance for you, Nicole. You've got to try again.
Indeed, Nicole Foggy chasing down Chris Danes. Mentioned willpower, indeed we're in Australia, but yeah, definitely willpower being employed here by both of these drivers. Danes has a will to stay in 2nd position and fend off Nicole Foggy just to show that he can. Nicole Foggy has the will to get through again just to show that he can. Round the outside goes Nicole Foggy, and wow, sweeping through the rubbing doors. That's very close. Rubbing wheel covers there into turn 2.
Not enough
and off
grip.
goes Dane.
Not enough grit. He tried to hold it around the outside. He carried way too much entry speed into that section. He tried, but then suddenly the grip said no, and computer says no. Chris Danes now behind his teammate Ethan Bass. That drops him back to 6th place overall. So Foggy up into 2nd, but Johnny Brandon has got away, and there are 5 laps to go. Now 4.5, and all of a sudden, Nicole Foggy needs some worldy laps, but I'm not sure he'll find them to get the clean sweep here tonight. Scott Malcolm comfortably sitting behind Adam McNally in 12th position at the moment. His rival, Andy Maxwell, down in 16th, cannot find a way past James Leggett or Dean Timms, all of whom started well, but they're going wide as Dean Timms. This will allow Leggett the chance here to think about going around the outside at Siberia, and that's called going to outer Siberia and getting the move done.
Danes is behind Bass now, so he's down to 6th position as it stands. But anyway, so coming to the end of another lap of racing, Johnny Brandon has the biggest lead that he's had so far this race, but I expect it's going to be coming down because now he's got Nicole Foggy on his tail. Nicole Foggy, one of the fastest drivers that BSR has ever seen. Now as they cross the line, Rich Woolman, Dan Blake, this is over 3rd position as it stands, warming him to the inside line. Dan Blake will be on the outside through turn 1, driver's left, and Woolman's going to get it on the apex pretty much before they'd even turned in. He had the move. Blake trying to come back to him on the exit, but no switchback opportunity there, and Rich Wormingham is now on the podium. It's 3 XV racers from 3.
Well, that was no less than what they wanted from the racing. Rich Wormingham gets himself up through, started 13th, now up into the position which he needs to be, as Danes will try and pull away back with Steve Lavallee trying to stay on the back of this as well here at late times here in Phillip Island. Track temp down to just 22 degrees here as side-by-side Lee Deemer and Kip Stevens. Deemer desperately trying to defend it. Small kink right of 5, and again, outside line for Kip Stevens. He's got to be careful on that switch back here as he again tries to pick up a runoff for the exit, and again, tucked underneath with nowhere to go. Lee Deemer defending well. Kip having nothing at the moment, trying to find that move, and again, that move is not forthcoming at this stage in time. Keep an eye out on as well as James Leggett and Andy Maxwell battle. Maxwell needing everything he can. Leggett won't let him have anything.
course, Leggett still holding that that position, that 14th position as it stands, and the oh no, 15th actually. Sorry, so something's happened that I haven't been concentrating
No, it is
for. But
14th.
okay, well, Dean Tims has had an instant somewhere then, because Tims
He
has
has.
popped back. Okay, well, something happening between them. Anyway, so the
Off
end
at
of another
turn 2.
lap. And the order changes officially. Nicole Foggy second, Rich Willingham third, then Dan Blake, Ethan Bass, and Danes is now. Has he just got past Steve Lavalley, or is Lavalley now attacking him?
It's Lavalley now attacking as Stevens almost runs into Dima, but now suddenly Chris Danes having to think about defense here. Lavalley looking to the inside at turn 3. Now it's going to move to the outside here to try and throw the dummy, set it up here as they head to the Honda corner. On the brakes, who's going to be braver? Around the outside is going to be tough to make it work. But again, nothing doing for the XV Racer car. Nothing doing for one Steve Lavalley, who will have to sit and wait and hope there's another opportunity down the road as McNally has gone off and gives Scott Malcolm a position, gives Carl Jacquelet a position as well. And all of a sudden, life made harder for Andy Maxwell, who effectively is staring into the aether and saying, well, there's 2 laps to go. I'm going to need the engine to blow up here if I've got any chance of an AM category championship anymore.
There's a mistake calling zone there from Adam positions with that. Anyway, I'm still looking at actually the gap between Brandon and Foggy really isn't coming down. They're going to complete another lap, but yeah, last lap it didn't at all, and I thought that Foggy still had a chance of winning earlier, but needed to bring the gap down faster than this. In fact, he's in more of a danger of being caught by Rich Wilmingham at this point in time. But anyway, yeah, gap actually came out slightly. A gap came down between him and Rich. Now, I don't think Rich is going to go for it, especially since he knows that if something goes wrong, Nicole Foggy may lose the championship. Anyway, Dima now side by side with Stevens, and Dima through on the inside for 9th position. Steven coming back to on the exit. That's going to turn into the outside line, and we've seen that never tends to work at turn 2 unless your opponent overshoots it, like Dima's done there. Dima running wide, and Stevens getting back underneath him for 9th place.
Yep, that's a good move. Here's Andy Maxwell trying to go down the inside, and James Leggett's going to run out too wide, and there is a position for Andy Maxwell, probably the only solace that he's going to have over the terms of racing. Oh, I thought it was, but here's James Leggett going to come straight back after the mistake, and well, Andy, the one thing you can say, buddy, is that at least you tried, and it didn't quite work out in the end, so he's got to try and do it all over again. 2 laps to go, and it will be a lap and a half. And maybe a bit less. Still, Bass defending Danes, defending Lavalley as they go up Lukey Heights for the penultimate time. But the white flag will be coming along for one Johnny Brandon, who at this point in time has done everything that he needed to do in this final race. He knew that a win was required, and he finds himself with a lap to go in that position, a winning position. But so often when it has come to this championship, he's looked behind him and the number 66 machine has just been sitting there, smiling, waiting, saying, yes, when you have your mistakes and you've run into Robin Haase in the early part of the season, when you've had your issues, I've just been sitting here. I've been the one putting in the results. I have been the better driver over the course of a season, and that's why Nico Foggy stands himself as champion-elect with a lap to go. He knows that even if he doesn't make it over the line, he has got himself pretty much signed, pretty much sealed, and pretty much delivered. The same can also be said for the man in 11th position right now, Scott Malcolm, who very much had to fight from a very long way back in his championship to get into the amateur category top 9, and did so, and then has had a fantastic season in this showdown. He knew exactly what he needed. Lavalley still fighting, as is Chris Danes, trying to go around the outside here of Ethan Bass. That's not working. Lavalley may have a shot in the final stages then of this race, but for Johnny Brandon, he heads up Lukey Heights one last time. He gets the big plunge down to the MG corner. On the brakes he goes, and he knows only 2 corners remain for him and his season. He moves himself through turn number 11 at 120 Ks, going up through the gears, through the motions, through the cadences for one final time, for one final corner. It may be a battle won Johnny Brandon, as he will finish it up with his teammates Nico Foggy and Rich Warmingham as he gets himself over to the line, and they will have a nice photo to celebrate. The battle won by Johnny Brandon. The war is won by Nico Foggy, who becomes British Sim Racer TCR champion for 2019 Season 4, and that was magnificently done from them, and a nice show of respect as they come through. There's Scott Malcolm coming to the line as amateur category champion in the number 74 car, and has absolutely shown why he needed that one to go his way. A nice try from one Andy Maxwell, but simply put, the mistake in the opening lap cost him everything in that race. And Caitlin, that brings the curtain on a season.
He's fast, he's furious, he's foggy, he's finished second. Championship, wonderful, and again a very close finish, admittedly this time because it was formation finish, but what a picture that is for the photographers between Brandon, Foggy and Warmingham at the end, and what a great season this has been for XV Racer. Shame their main rivals, Rensports Online, pulled out earlier on in the season, but still, you can't say that XV Racer haven't worked for this or deserved this, and still, Nico Foggy coming out the top of all of them, and winning the championship despite a win at the final round from Johnny Brandon. Wonderful race, wonderful day of racing, but XV Racer, you have to say, team of the championship and drivers of the day.
Well, they very much have done well. Official classified results then are as follows. Johnny Brandon wins the battle in 33 minutes and 28 seconds. His margin of victory is the Ford photo finish at Le Mans 66. A great movie. If you haven't seen it, go and check that out. Ford versus Ferrari. He beats Nico Foggy in the end, who wins the war, takes the title, and can claim himself BSR TCR champion of the Sunday Cup here on Forever Sim Racing. Rich Warmingham finishes it off in third position with Dan Blake in fourth. Ethan Bass finishing a top 5 ahead of Chris Daines, who ran himself into troubles late on in the day. Steve Lavallee finishing 7th with Lane O'Connor in 8th. Kip Stevens ultimately picking up what he needed, though, battling lap after lap with Lee Deemer, finishing ahead of the Welshman.
11th place in the end was who wins the AM category of, I believe, the championship. Then it's Carl Jackalap, followed by Adam McNally, who's doing reverse donuts on the pit straight and into the wall. Those are awful reverse donuts, but anyway, at least he's better at driving, or racing, sorry. James Leggett, P14, Andy Maxwell, P15, then Charles Kellyman, Dean Timms, and John Roberts rounding out the field.
I will say those reverse donuts must have been made who had a custard filling in them instead of a jam filling, so that's probably why.
Must have been.
It must have been. It didn't quite work out in that favour. It did not work the way that he wanted to, but it does work for one Nico Foggy, who picks up his title in the way that only he knows how, by putting an almost flawless performance in with 2 race victories and a second place finish to consolidate a big championship run. But a massive thanks has to go out, of course, to Forcex Designs, who are our graphics partners for over the course of the broadcast that you have seen. On top of that, to Violet, her music you can catch on Bandcamp and on Spotify. Make sure that you check out her album, Queen of Misfits. Make sure that you keep an eye out on that. And on top of that, a massive thanks to the British Sim Racers for once again coming up with another great championship to join alongside what has been a good legacy that they have in terms of the sim racing community. From Caitlin Penny and Marco Barbanera, the camera's made, of course, by Dougie Beard. I've been Jake Sperry. Foggy has his title. He can be happy once again. But of course, a battle is one thing, a war is another, and a season may not be too far around the corner. We will see you very soon, as and when our next broadcast is. We'll see you very, very soon.
shadows dancing through